Hey there, you made it through another day. And maybe that's something you haven't told yourself enough. Lately, you made it. I don't know what this day asked of you, or what it took from you, but I do know this. You're here now, and that matters. You've arrived at this quiet space, not by accident, but because your soul has been longing for rest, the kind of rest that can't be found in sleep alone, but in peace, real peace. Tonight, as you sit here or lie down, you don't need to rush. You don't need to fix, prove, or strive. You've done enough for today. The world outside can wait. This is your time, your sacred pause. A moment carved out for your spirit to breathe again. Maybe you've been feeling heavy lately, burdened by worries that seem to follow you everywhere you go. Maybe there are questions that don't have answers yet, or things you've been praying for that feel unanswered. But even here, in the quiet, God is near, and He's not asking you to pretend that everything's fine. He's not waiting for you to be perfect before He shows up. He's already here, ready to meet you right where you are. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Feel the weight you've been carrying start to soften, even if just a little. When you breathe in, imagine His peace filling every tired place in your heart. When you breathe out, imagine releasing everything that's been holding you captive. The tension, the fear, the endless what-ifs. Let them go. You're safe here. This space was created for nights like this, for moments when you can't seem to quiet your thoughts, when the world feels too loud, or when your heart needs something deeper than noise or distraction. Here, through the Word of God, you'll find a steady rhythm, a heartbeat of comfort that reminds you you're not alone. Maybe you're lying in bed, the room dimly lit, listening through your headphones as the words begin to flow. Or maybe you're sitting quietly, eyes closed, just letting the stillness settle in. Wherever you are, this moment belongs to you. Let it be simple. Let it be real. I finish the sentence for us. Let us open our hearts and settle into the quiet. The light is soft. The room breathes slowly. A lamp throws a warm circle on the table. A Bible lies closed for a moment. Like a sleeping companion, I place the book on my lap. Fingers find the worn spine with a gentle touch. The pages whisper as they open. The paper smells faintly of dust and ink and memories. That small sound is an invitation. It asks only that attention settle. It asks only that breath slow. We breathe in together. We breathe out together. Each exhale loosens a knot in the body. Each inhale brings a cool, simple peace. The chair holds well. The blanket drapes quietly. A cup, cooled now, sits by the lamp. The house is still. I begin to read, not to teach, but to guide. I read for rest. I read to remind. The words I share are soft. They are full of mercy and calm. They point to a presence that watches over the small moments. They do not press for answers. They simply say, "You are known." The first passage I choose speaks of gentle shelter. It paints a picture of one who watches like a gardener tending a fragile vine. The tone is close and tender. It names tired hands and weary feet. It offers the image of shade on a hot afternoon. Such images settle the mind. They move the thought away from worry and back toward rest. I let each sentence flow slowly. I pause at the commas. I let the quiet between phrases stretch. Like a woven rope, easing under a soft pull. In those pauses, you can feel the mercy that the words point toward. Mercy is not a lecture. Mercy is a hand laid lightly on a brow. Mercy is a presence that tucks in the edges of a frayed day. There is a passage about still waters. I describe the scene water that moves without noise. A river that reflects the sky without disturbance. The heart is invited to be like that surface. It is allowed to be steady. No demand sits on it tonight. Only a gentle invitation to be still and know that care is close. I touch on images of rest that come from a friend who takes the heavy burden and eases it. I say that rest is not a prize to earn. It is a gift to accept. Christ's gentleness calls us to lay down what we cannot carry. The offer is quiet. It does not shout. It assures. The voice is like a soft bell at dusk. Sometimes the pages bring stories of lost things found. I unpack that image in calm. Spare sentences. A shepherd counts until every sheep returns. A parent searches until a lost coin is found. These scenes are small and domestic. They carry hope like a lantern. Hope here is not grand or urgent. It is the steady light that shows the path back home. When words turn toward forgiveness, I use them like balm. I describe a hand wiping away a smudge from a face. I tell of a door that opens again after being closed. Mercy comes with second chances, with gentle restarts. The past is not erased for drama. It is healed for peace. This healing makes room inside the chest for sleep. I speak now of imminence. The language in the book often points to nearness. I say that the presence is not far off. It is near enough to hear the quiet breath we take. It knows the small sounds of the night. This nearness brings comfort. It tells us we are not alone in our smallness. The images continue. There is a mountain that stands steady through seasons. There is a house built on rock that withstands wind. These metaphors are mean to steady. They are not abstract theology. They are anchors for an anxious mind. They say simply that some things remain true when the moment feels unhinged. I pause to breathe with you again. The lamp casts a larger shadow now. Outside, the night deepens. The house nestles into silence. A distant clock ticks with a slow, kind beat. Each tick marks a release. Each second allows another small letting go. I read a passage that reminds of rest after labor. It pictures tired hands folding at last. The body softens. Like a field at the end of harvest. This rest is earned and given. It is both relief and permission. The passage invites surrender in a way that feels safe. It gives permission to close eyes and trust the day's work was seen. Sometimes the text suggests tending to one another. I describe a scene where neighbors bring warm food and a blanket. They do not ask for grand explanations. They simply show up. Community looks like a quiet corridor of lamps. To be cared for is to be seen in small ways. That knowledge brings warmth to a chest that has felt cold. I offer a picture of hope that is patient, not frantic. It grows like a small plant pushing through soil after a long winter. It is steady and calm. Hope does not shout its arrival. It creates a steady rising. The promise in these pages often uses such steady, gentle images. That steadiness invites the listener to slow. As I move through the book, my voice becomes a low, even rhythm. I do not rush. I let each image stand long enough to nestle in the mind. The aim is to calm the breath, ease the shoulders, and let the eyes become heavy. The words are a lullaby with meaning. I also name pain plainly, without dwelling in it. The scriptures often speak to heartache. I read those parts with tenderness. The words say that sorrow is not a failure. Sorrow is a part of human weather. Rain falls, the soil drinks. The image is not meant to make grief small. It is meant to show that growth can follow even the hardest rains. Then I fold us back into mercy. I describe the steady promise that mercy renews each morning, like dew on grass. It is fresh and uncomplicated. Each day offers a new, small possibility of relief. There is a rhythm that moves from night to morning, from worry to rest, from labor to repose. At times I slow even more, and only describe the scene. A child asleep at a window, a warm cup on a table, the hush of a house at midnight. These images are gentle anchors. They help the mind trace a path away from spiraling thoughts and towards simple presence. I remind you quietly that being small in the world does not mean being unimportant. Small things matter. A whispered prayer, a hand held, a shared blanket. These are the stitches that hold a life together. The book I read from treasures such small stitches. It praises the simple acts that make nights gentler. I keep the theology light and kind. I do not provoke argument. Instead, I point to mercy made ordinary. I speak of grace like a steady light on a long road. It guides without condemning. It knows the weight we carry and offers help. As the reading winds on, I invite a brief silence. No sound is required. The quiet becomes a space where the words settle. Breath moves slowly. Thoughts float by like small leaves on a pond. The presence remains gentle and patient. Before I close the book, I read a short passage that speaks of peace coming like a soft cloak. It describes peace that covers like a warm shawl. This peace does not banish the world's complexity. It simply makes a place inside the chest where rest can begin. I lower my voice to the most tender register I have. The final lines I offer tonight are an assurance. They say that mercy is steady, that hope grows quietly, and that rest is permitted. The voice guides the ears toward sleep, not toward debate. Then I close the Bible with care. The cover comes down like a hand settling over the heart. For a moment, my hand rests there. We let the silence last a little longer. The lamp fades as the eyes grow heavy. The room breathes with us. I stand and move to dim the light a touch more. The house prepares to sleep. I place the book where it will be easy to find tomorrow. The night wraps us in gentleness. We end with a quiet pause. À délibérate houche. The mind has found its harbor for tonight. We carry a small consolation into sleep. Mercy has been spoken softly. Hope has been named, not as a demand, but as a companion. Now, with the lamp low and the book closed, the room settles. The journey continues tomorrow. For now, sleep is invited. The evening is complete. Allowing. The word settles between us like a soft promise. It does not demand change. It makes room. The Bible rests on the knee again. Fingers find the margin where a page once bent. Light is low. The room breathes slow. A small fan turns with a hush. A blanket folds at the foot of the chair. The moment is spare and kind. I read slowly. The first lines I choose ask nothing of intellect. They ask only for the heart to soften. They invite the practice of permission. Permission to feel. Permission to rest. Permission to be as one is in the hour before sleep. Pressure releases from the jaw. A's close like curtains. The voice stays calm. Each sentence offers space. Space to let thought sit without fixing it. Space to let sorrow come without numbers. Space to let joy pass by like a bird on a winter branch. There is a passage that pictures breathing as belonging. It compares breath to a gift that returns each morning. It is not earned. It is shared. Just as frames of sunlight cross a window regardless of work done, that frame steadies a restless mind. The rhythm of breath becomes a small sacrament. Inhaling becomes acceptance. Exhaling becomes release. I linger on a line about tears. The image is gentle. Tears are not failure. They are water, finding a path. The page suggests that tears have weight and purpose. They clear vision for the next step. They are allowed. A hand rests near the heart. No words correct the sadness. A presence welcomes it. That welcome is enough. Kindness shows not as a lesson, but as daily habit. The text named small acts a loaf shared at a doorstep. Shoes wiped before a threshold. A lantern said, so late travelers can find home. These tiny motions teach the practice of allowance. They make room for others. They make room for the self. There is a metaphor of a field left fallow. It calls for rest after labor. Letting ground lie quiet is not neglect. It is care. In the same way, allowing the heart to pause is care. The soil of the chest loosens. Seeds that have sat for long take root more easily. That image steadies the mind that fears idleness. I read of quiet trust. It does not promise quick answers. It promises presence. Presence steadies a hand that trembles. Presence stays with the one who cannot fix morning. This presence is patient. It does not hurry the healing. It meets the small fear and sits beside it like a companion, speaking no words. When the book speaks of waiting, the tone is steady and warm. Waiting is not passive emptiness. It is a careful watch. It is the act of holding a lamp steadily in a dark night, not because the light is lacking, but because steadiness matters. Such waiting teaches endurance that is soft. It is patience without anxious grasping. I turn a page, and the images shift to shelter. Shelter is not merely a roof. It is the way a hand lays a blanket across shoulders. It is how a familiar voice hums at the kitchen sink. Shelter here is found in small, daily constancies that say, "You are safe for tonight." That assurance allows sleep to come without a long list of defenses. Forgiveness appears in quiet strokes. It is not a dramatic scene. It is a folding back together of torn cloth. It is mending by steady fingers. Forgiveness permits rest because it removes the work of carrying what is finished. It moves energy back into life, not into the maintenance of wounds. Those mended places become warmer and softer. A passage reminds that questions are not always to be solved. Some questions are windows to look through rather than puzzles to force. They open into wide skies that do not demand an answer. Allowing questions this way teaches humility. It teaches comfort in mystery. The night receives not an exam but a curious gaze. Compassion walks through the pages like a quiet neighbor. Compassion bends without breaking. It sees the small details, a child's mitten left by the door, a note tucked in a shoebox. These are the signs that someone watched and remembered. Such remembering is an act of allowance. It keeps the world gentle. I pause often. These pauses are intentional. In each pause, the breath deepens. The body remembers how to let go. The shoulders fall. The hands unclench. In the space after a line, the words settle like snow on a roof. They anchor without weight. The text speaks of care that comes without spectacle. A soup warmed gently on a stove. A letter written with careful script. These acts do not trumpet their goodness. They simply arrive when needed. They are permission given without fanfare. The smallness of these gestures makes them easier to accept. The idea of surrender is tender here. Surrender is not defeat. It is the conscious release of a burden that was never meant to be carried alone. It is like setting down a heavy basket beside a door. The hand that reaches in does not keep asking for the basket. It returns to lighter tasks. Allowing surrender is an act of trust. When fear creaks like an old hinge, the pages offer a steady hinge to replace it. The hinge is reliable. It opens in calm increments. It does not slam. The presence described closes sometimes and opens again. That movement invites the heart to try small things first. A gentle step is as brave as a leap. There is softness about limits. Limits do not signify failure. They shape life. A fence keeps a garden wholesome. The line between what can be carried today and what can wait is a kind line. Setting that line is an act of wisdom. It is permission given to the weary to stop trying to lift more than is wise. Rest is revisited, but by a different light. This rest is not only sleep, it is the choice to put aside worry for a night. It is the act of closing a ledger and putting the pen down. Rest allows the eyes to blur and the mouth to breathe out. In that blur, the world can seem as though it will hold for a while longer. I describe small rituals that help the mind allow rest. A cup of warm tea poured from a kettle, hands warmed by the ceramic, a quilt smoothed where it meets the knees. The lamp dimmed a breath more than before. These rituals are not commands. They are invitations to the body to remember comfort. The reading touches on mercy that renews. Mercy comes in fresh ways. Like rain efter lång dust. It does not require a catalogue of worthiness. It simply arrives. The arriving is enough to soften the tightness that the day carved. Mercy is the room where one can sit without explanation. Hope appears less as a promise about the future and more as a small lamp in the present. It is a lantern set on a windowsill. It does not shout that dawn will be bright. It offers enough light so that the path is visible a few steps ahead. This kind of hope is patient. It teaches the listener to take one careful breath and then another. The text I read often returns to presence. Presence is like a constant hum. It is felt more than described. When presence remains, worries lose some of their urgency. They become pages in a longer book. Not the whole story. Presence steadies the night. As I read, fingers trace the grain of the table. The texture is real. It anchors the moment. The simple physical act reminds the mind of a grounded world. Worldly things like wood and fabric and porcelain hold us during the night. They are part of the permission the evening grants. When thoughts wander, they are guided gently back, not with sharp rebuke, but with a soft reminder. The practice is the same as when teaching a small child to sit steady hand, calm voice, patient wait. The mind accepts this pattern, if given kindly and often. The reading does not erase hard nights. It makes room for them. It gives them an ordered place on the shelf of the heart. They no longer occupy every surface. They sit, acknowledged, and are not the entire room. This ordering allows sleep to return like a benevolent neighbor who knows the house well. I close the book for a moment and let the quiet do its work. No words are necessary now. The room breathes with a measured calm. The lamp throws its final soft shine. Attention moves to the breath again. The breath is steady, like a slow sea. Before I shut the light, a last line settles in permission, is a repeated offering. It must be given, often because nights arrive with different needs. Some nights ask for loud proclamation. Most nights do not. Most nights ask only that we allow what is, and trust that what is will be enough for the hours. I close the Bible with a care that feels like tucking a child in. The cover is not heavy. It rests easy on the lap. For a moment, the hand lingers. The pause is deliberate. The presence that the words have invited remains. I stand slowly and dim the lamp once more. The house draws a long, gentle breath. A chair creaks softly as it settles. The night outside holds its quiet steady. Allowing has done its work tonight. The heart has been given room. Now the bed waits. The door is not locked tight against the world. It is simply closed enough to let sleep bloom. The final act is a soft release. No fanfare. No long lists. A simple, willing surrender to the silence that follows blessing. The evening ends on purpose. Rest arrives like a small guest, welcomed in without ceremony. The night keeps watch. Mercy remains near. Hope sits quietly at the edge of sleep. The house breathes once more, and the world grows calm. I open the Bible and lay it across my knees. The room is quiet. The lamp throws a softer circle now. The page breathes. As it turns, my voice comes low and patient. Tonight I linger on a short, steady idea. Forgiveness as a beginning, not a finish line, not an erasure, a door that opens into rest. The words I read ask us to choose this door, one small time at a time, to start again. There is a passage that ties two things closely together. When mercy goes outward, it flows back inward. When hands let go of stones, their palms become empty to receive. The book suggests that forgiving others loosens the weight we carry. It allows a larger grace to find a way into the heart. That is the simple shape of the thought. I pause, and we breathe. Each breath is slow. Inhaling brings a cool steadiness. Exhaling lets a small thing fall away. Picture for a moment a bundle of letters. They sit on a table, tied with string. The string is knots of hurt and names and small gripes. Forgiveness opens the hands and unties one loop. The letters are not burned. Their words remain. They are simply moved to a different shelf. The room becomes lighter. This is not to say that all memories vanish. Memory often stays like old paint on a wall. Forgiveness does not scrape it off. It paints a new layer gently over the old. The texture still traces where the brush passed. The color is softer. The room feels warmer for it. I describe another image. A river slips past stones along its bed. One stone holds a scrap of cloth. The current does not ignore the cloth. It moves around. Over time, the cloth loosens. The water does not accuse the cloth. It simply keeps moving, patient and steady. Forgiveness often works like that current. It does not demand sudden change. It invites gradual shifting. The invitation is quiet. Sometimes forgiving begins with small acts. A name is not said aloud. A sign on a table is turned. A hand is offered to a neighbor without explaining. These gestures do not remake a past. They begin the gentle unburdening that allows sleep to come. The choice is not dramatic. It is ordinary and repeatable. There is a careful line in the passage I read. It says that if we keep tight what was given, our hands remain closed. Closed hands hold less blessing. Open hands receive more. So forgiveness can be a first breath of a new morning carried into tonight. It is not the whole day. It is the starting hush that makes other things possible. I move my fingers across the margin. Small marks show where someone once paused. I imagine that person setting down an old stone at the edge of a path. The stone is heavy. It sat in their pocket. They lift it and lay it down with a small, deliberate motion. There is no parade. There is a quiet relief in the shoulders. That relief is not absent of feeling. It is formed by a decision to let weight be lifted. Forgiving the self often needs the softest hands. The book points to the habit of returning to one's own chest and saying, "You tried. You did what you could then." The voice that reads tonight does not demand more. It makes space for a tired heart. A murmur of mercy settles over the places that have been hard to look at. To offer the self-forgiveness is to return the worn coat to the closet, where it can air and mend. When another has hurt us, forgiving does not always mean immediate trust. It does not erase the need for caution or for honesty. It makes room for repair. Repair happens slowly. It may ask for new boundaries. Those boundaries are like rails along a path. They keep travelers safe. They do not signify hate. They show care. I speak of community too, in the small towns of my mind. Neighbors meet with warm bread and quiet words. Someone apologizes in a way that is plain. Another accepts without fanfare. The scene is not perfect. The bread is not always warm. But the repair happens. It grows like a patch across a rug. The home looks a little steadier afterward. The practice I offer is simple. Place a stone in your hands. Feel its weight. Name the small hurt it represents. Silently, if that feels safer, then set the stone down by the window. Watch the light come over it. Let the placement be an act. This is a beginning. It is not a decree. It is a moving forward. Breath ties to the practice. Breathe in the memory. Breathe out the release. Repeat. The rhythm is like small, steady waves against the shore. Each wave does not erase the sand that came before. Each wave smooths it a little more. Forgiveness is made in rhythms like that, not as a single great tide, but as many gentle ones. There is comfort in the idea that grace meets the choosing. When hands open, something larger enters. The book says the two are bound. The reading is soft. It does not demand a checklist of correctness. It simply says that mercy permitted outwardly will settle inwardly. The promise is not theatrical. It is like the dawn that colors a field. It happens quietly and surely. I hold the book with both hands. The binding is warm from the lamp. My eyes follow a paragraph that speaks of anger tucked away like a closed window. Forgiveness opens that frame. Fresh air comes into the room. Old closeness can feel strange at first. Like returning to a house after a long absence. The furniture has shifted slightly, but the house is still a home. Sometimes the hardest forgiveness is toward those we will never see again. The book acknowledges this. It offers a way to place those names into a basket and set the basket by the back door. The act does not claim to fix the unfixable. It simply repositions the weight. The chest breathes a little easier when the load is no longer held up by clenched fingers. There is gentle counsel here. Forgiveness serves the forgiver. It is not only for the one who wronged. The choice to forgive is a balm to the one who chooses it. The body relaxes. Sleep arrives with less tug. The mind finds a narrower list of things to wake for. The night can do its slow work. Dawn can come without as many small alarms. I move through the passage toward its close. My voice is steady. It does not insist on complete resolution. It suggests a first step. Choose forgiving tonight. Begin with one small story you carry. Lay it down. If it returns tomorrow, lay it down again. Repetition is no failure. It is a practice. In the quiet, I invite a small ritual. Place a palm over the place where your chest feels tight. Whisper, in any words that feel true, that you will begin again. There is no need to explain. There is no need for victory. The simple promise of trying is enough to start the loosening. I look up at the lamp. The light is gentler now. Outside, a soft breeze moves, leaves in a slow pattern. The house listens. The book closes the thought with a tender image. Mercy that is given finds its way home. Forgiveness begun tonight makes room for morning to arrive with a lighter step. The Bible rests on my lap for a moment. Fingers trace the edge. A small silence grows. Breath meets breath. The choice made here is quiet. It is not a proclamation to the world. It is a hush between heartbeats. It is the first move toward a sleep that can hold gentleness. I close the book slowly. The cover lies flat. My hand stays there a heartbeat longer. The lamp lowers. The room yields to the night. Forgiveness, to begin this phrase, settles like a soft cloth over the shoulders. It is not the final shawl. It is the first. I stand and dim the light one last degree. The path to the bedroom is soft. The house turns inward. Merci remet close. Hope sits quietly at the edge of sleep. The night receives our small offering of letting go. Now the last act is simple. Lay down. Breathe. Allow the beginning to do its gentle work. The morning will come in its time. For now, forgiveness begins. We may not even realize we're carrying. I close my eyes for a single slow breath and then open the Bible again. The lamp makes a quiet pool of light. The page gleams faintly. The thought I follow tonight is simple and soft. Grace is a gift. It comes without a bill to be paid. It arrives when hands are empty. I read a line that says, "Salvation is given, not earned." The sentence feels like a small door opening. It does not ask for a long resume. It does not ask for proof. It asks only for a receiving. That receiving is gentle. It is like taking a warm cloak from a stranger who refuses the coin offered. Grace is abundant. The word abundant is not a shout. It is a steady hope. It spreads like sunlight across a countertop. There is more than enough. The thought calms a mind that counts and recounts. It makes room for the simple fact that some help is not tied to merit. I describe the scene quietly. Imagine a doorstep in late evening. A small bundle sits there, wrapped in plain cloth. No note tags it with reason. No name is scrawled. Someone left it for no one in particular. Inside are bread and a lamp and a little measure of oil. The giver walks away without demand. That bundle is grace. It arrives whether I am ready or not. It invites a slow reach. Humility follows. Grace humbles, not by shame, but by a soft rearranging of the heart. When a door opens and a gift is placed in one's lap, the first impulse is surprise. Surprise makes room for gratitude. Gratitude eases pride, the way rain eases dust. I do not have to prove I am worthy before the gift is handed. That knowledge lowers a shoulder. It lets the chest relax. There is a curious freedom in that lowering. The need to perform or tally becomes less loud. Hands that were clenched relax. Mind that sprinted to make lists finds a chair. The book I read tonight speaks to this quiet freedom. It says, the things we try to build to impress will not be the foundation that holds a heart through the night. Grace alone is the steady that lets sleep come. I pause and breathe with you. The inhalation is soft, the exhalation longer. With each breath, imagine a ledger on a table. The ledger holds names and numbers, and what we have done and what we have failed to do. Now, picture a hand smoothing the ledger closed. It is not burned. It is simply set down. The act is small. It is not a fireworks display. It is the kind of gentle closure that allows rest. This is not a lesson about laziness. It is a reminder that worth is not measured only by yesterday's victories. The passage I read nudges toward a simpler scale. We are seen apart from achievement. This does not excuse negligence. It gives the weary permission to stop proving and to receive. Grace creates space to be honest about failure, without fear of being thrown out. The gift invites confession as a doorway, not a trap. Speak a truth, and it meets mercy. That meeting is quiet. It does not humiliate. It brings balm. I describe it as a small hand laid on a forehead. The touch does not erase the fever, but it cools the burn enough for sleep. There is tenderness in how grace interacts with the body. Picture shoulders that have hiked up around the ears. Picture jaw set from a day of holding on. Grace asks nothing from those tensed muscles but to unclench. Inhaling becomes easier. Exhaling lengthens. The simple physical release is a form of receiving. The body cannot accept an offered gift and keep a tight fist. The hands must open. I give space now for an image of a crowded room. Each person at a table has a small pile of stones. Each stone is a regret. Some piles are heavy, others are light. The instruction on the wall reads, "Set one stone down." We do not remove all at once. We do not weigh which ones deserve to stay. We simply practice letting go. Grace is the helper who picks up a stone and puts it aside, not to hide it, but to relieve the weight of the hand holding it. This practicing of letting go is humble work. It requires no grand rhetoric. It asks for small, steady acts, a whispered permission to oneself, a choice to say, "Not tonight," a decision to lay a memory on a shelf. These acts are gentle repairs, or a team. They reshape a life into a place where sleep can come without so many alarms. I remember a passage where it says that we are saved through faith and by grace. Faith, in this sense, is not a forceful proving. It is a childlike reaching. Faith is the hand that receives the cloak at the door. To reach is simple. To receive is restful. The two together fold into a practice of living that softens the heart. Abundance matters because scarcity drives fear. When someone believes there is not enough, they clutch. Clutching makes the night restless. When grace is understood as abundant, a different posture grows. The chest opens. The fingers curl away from tightness. The mind can stop counting. It can let go. This is the mercy the evening offers. I place the Bible carefully on my lap. The binding is warm. My thumb rubs the edge of a page almost without thought. Small images come easily in this light. A field after rain. A door left unlocked. A neighbor who knocks with 2 loaves. The images are humble and domestic. They are not an argument. They are a comfort. Grace also asks for a soft honesty about self. It asks us to admit where pain persists. That admission is not a ticket to despair. It is an arrival point for compassion. I picture an old coat with a mended elbow. The repair is visible. The coat is warmer now because someone took time to stitch. Grace offers that mending, not to gloss the hole, but to make the garment useful again. There is a freedom in knowing I am not the sum of a list of good deeds. The book I read reminds that labor is meaningful in its place, but rest does not depend on a tally. This slightly shifts how I look at my hands. I can put them down. I can touch a lamp and feel the warmth. I can smooth the blanket with no need to justify the peace that follows. Sometimes acceptance of grace begins with small language, a quiet whisper of thanks, not a sermon, not a grand declaration. The mouth shapes a simple phrase, and the heart answers. The ritual can be as small as a candle set near the window, a cup of warm tea in the other hand, a palm over a heartbeat. These are practical ways to receive. They anchor the abstract in the body. Humility that comes from grace is not contrition alone. It is a gentleness toward others. When one knows they have received without earning, it becomes easier to offer the same to another. The evening's mercy moves outward in tiny, manageable ways. A note left on a table, a plate set a little closer, an ear that listens without fixing. These acts grow like small lights around a room. I let the silence sit for a moment. The house breathes with us. A distant clock keeps a slow, friendly time. Outside, leaves shuffle with an even, soft rhythm. Inside, the lamp keeps its steady circle. This setting is where grace settles. It is neither dramatic nor loud. It is presence that does not demand applause. Before I close the page, I invite a small practice. Place one hand over the chest. Place the other palm on the lap. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out longer. Whisper. If words are welcome, a single thank you. The words need not be elaborate. They simply name the receiving. Naming opens the palms wider, even if only a fraction. I linger on the last line I read. It says that this gift is not earned and not lost by effort. It is given and then held gently in the heart. The line comforts without demanding a perfect response. It says the door is open tonight. The choice is simple. We can step in or sit at the threshold. Either is acceptable for now. I close the Bible with hands that are a little lighter. The cover shuts with a soft sound. My fingers rest on the front for a breath. The lamp dims a fraction. The room leans toward sleep. Mercy has been named. Grace has been offered. For tonight, the ledger stays closed. I stand slowly and walk to the lamp. The light shifts lower. The house moves deeper into its hush. I leave the Bible where it can be found in the morning. The night receives what we offer. The body is invited to trust what it could not earn. Now, with the room softened and the breath steady, rest is allowed. Grace is not a reward for good performance. It is an old, faithful friend who sits with us. In the dark, I turn the lamp down a degree more. The house settles. The heart, wrapped in a gift not earned, can finally sleep. That we are loved beyond measure, just as we are. Sue, a story of second chances. I recall the story of a dear friend who found redemption and peace after granting and receiving forgiveness. The memory sits near the heart like a small stone warmed by sunlight. I tell it simply, not to boast, but to show that mercy moves in ordinary ways. Years ago, that friend walked heavily through life. Mistakes left their tracks. Regret sat like a coat that would not be shaken free. People who mattered were distant. Nights were long and full of small, sharp thoughts. The body was tired. The mind kept lists. The hands did not know how to rest. One evening, a neighbor left a small loaf at the door. It was not a grand act. No speech accompanied it. The giver did not demand explanation. The loaf was warm. Its mere presence said, "You are seen." That evening, the friend sat with the bread and the lamp, and for the first time in a long while let tears come. The tears did not fix everything. They did not erase the ledger. They simply loosened the grip of shame enough to breathe. Forgiveness sometimes begins at a doorstep. It begins with a small, unassuming face of kindness. The friend later walked back into rooms they had once avoided. They carried a bowl of soup, not as payment, but as company. The gestures were modest. They were repeatable. They were ordinary. Over months, they added up into a steady pattern that changed how the chest held heaviness. At the center of the story is a slow exchange. The friend offered a sincere apology to one who had been hurt. That person returned an acceptance that was small and honest. The exchange did not erase the past. It replaced it. What was a burden on the shoulders became a memory set on a shelf. The shelf did not hide it away. It organized it so the days could be quieter. The room of life made more space for sleep. Receiving forgiveness mattered as much as offering it. The friend learned to place kindness towards self in the same hands used to care for others. Worn shoes were mended. A jacket with a torn seam received steady stitches. These physical repairs matched inner work. New habits formed around tender attentiveness. Mornings became less about proving worth and more about small acts of repair. The presence that watches over the small moments met each repair with a humble nod. Community helped. A person checks in by the mailbox. Another leaves a note by the kettle. People do not solve the whole story. They show up with small things. The friend, who had once shrank from such attentions, began to accept them. The acceptance was awkward at first. Gradually, it grew into a habit of staying. The habit steadied the heart. Work of the hands also guided the way. There is a hedge in the village that needed trimming. The friend took clippers and went out one afternoon. The task was simple and honest. Restful. The mind grew quieter. Each cut was a tiny repentance. Each cleared path allowed something new to be planted. There is a grace in small labor that neither boasts nor hides. It teaches that repair is often practical, not dramatic. Walking with another person made the change slower and steadier. Two people moving along a lane notice the weather. They note the season. Conversation is gentle and spare. There are no speeches about justice or debt. There are small questions about how the day held. These walks become the place where trust is relearned, one step at a time. The feet know rhythm. The heart follows. Prayer arrived quietly for this friend. Not loud words, not pleas for immediate change. Instead, short moments of looking out the window and whispering a small trust, a hand laid on a kitchen table, a breath taken with intention. The practice did not fix the past. It recentered the present. Evening rituals came to matter. A bowl left by the sink, a book on the nightstand, a lamp near the bed. These were signs of a life trying to be ordinary and whole. Forgiveness and second chances do not follow a tidy timeline. Some mornings felt easier. Some afternoons pulled old threads loose again. There were days when the friend had to return to the work of letting go. The pattern was patient. It allowed for setbacks. It did not demand perfection. What changed was the willingness to keep trying. Persistence looked like a soft, repeated act. It looked like returning to a practice of small kindnesses. A key moment came when the friend was given a task that required care for someone fragile. Helping that person offered a practical way to live out the mercy once received. The hands that once clenched now tended, feeding another, folding a blanket. Listening, these acts trained the heart to be generous in small measures. Service proved to be as much a receiving as it was a giving. In serving, peace came in odd, beautiful ways. The story also holds a wise restraint. Forgiving another did not mean ignoring harm. Boundaries were put in place slowly and kindly. These lines were not punishment. They were protection for growth. They allowed the friend to learn trust without rushing into risk. The boundaries read like rails along a path. They guided movement without locking the gate. Evenings became the time when the progress was most visible. The friend sits by a window. A lamp throws a soft circle on the table. A Bible rests nearby. Not as an exam, but as a companion. Reading happens in low voice. Passages about mercy find particular echo. Words about being held bring tears, and then a calm. Sleep arrives that had been scarce for so long. The breath comes with less urgency. The rhythm of the chest calms like water after a long wind. One small ritual marks the recovery. Ik week. A stone is placed on a windowsill. The stones represent moments set down. Some are heavy, others are small and smooth. The act of placing one is not theatrical. It is a gesture of trust. Over time, the sill gathers a line of stones. The collection shows that forgiveness and second chances are not single events. They are a series of small recommencements. Healing makes room for ordinary joys. A neighbor's garden yields a few tomatoes in late summer. They taste like small miracles. Cooking those tomatoes is a quiet celebration. The friend shares them without fanfare. The act of sharing food is a seam that stitches life to others. It builds the gentle architecture of community. The peace that grows is not a bright blaze. It is a slow, steady warmth. It waits at dawn like familiar light. It meets midnight with a soft presence. It does not banish memory. It reshapes the way memory sits in the room. Where once regret took up the largest chair, now mercy occupies more floor. The chest breathes easier. Sleep grows longer. This story is not exceptional because of the scale of transformation. It is ordinary because the change is made from repeated small things. A loaf at the door, a trimmed hedge, a shared walk, a bowl of soup. Each act is a stitch. Many stitches become a garment that fits more gently. The friend wears that garment to bed. The body rests. As I read this story aloud tonight, The lamp pool widens. The voice is soft. The Bible closes and opens again to remind of a presence that watches small repairs. The pages breathe like old paper. The room feels steadier. Before the light goes low, a simple invitation settles in. Think of a small stone in your hand. Name one thing you carry that feels heavy tonight. Set the stone on the windowsill. Let it be the first of many. The act is small. It is honest. It begins a pattern. I close the Bible with a gentle motion. My hand rests for a heartbeat. The light is dimmer outside. The night keeps its even breath. Inside, the room is calm. Mercy and second chances find a place in the quiet. For tonight, that is enough. The house leans into sleep. The story sits warm in the chest. We stand with the knowledge that new beginnings often arrive like small lights along a path. They appear when hands open and when hands stay willing to try again. The night receives that simple offering. Rest follows. The evening ends on purpose. I open the Bible and place it softly on my lap. The lamp throws a smaller pool of light now. The room breathes with slow, even breaths. The page in my hand feels warm. My voice comes low. I read to lay the words into the dark like stepping stone. The thought tonight comes from a short line that keeps returning to the bedside. It speaks of a peace that goes beyond explanation. The phrase is not a riddle. It is an invitation. It names a stillness that arrives, while the mind is still busy counting reasons and outcomes. The peace settles in a place inside the chest where words do not reach easily. I let the sentence sink slowly. I do not hurry the lines. I let each clause rest like a small bird on a branch. Between phrases, I pause. Those pauses are part of the reading. They are where the meaning breathes. In the hush between sounds, something gentle lays itself over the shoulders and says, "Be quiet for a while." There is a difference between understanding and being held. Understanding asks for maps and proofs. Being held asks only for presence. The peace the verse points to is like that. It does not demand an answer to every question. It does not require a tidy list of reasons. It comes and steadies without first being solved. I describe the feeling now in small, simple images. Imagine a deep pool of water in a hollow of the earth. The surface is glass. The wind dies before it reaches that place. Stars scatter their light there without disturbance. To look into that pool is to meet a calm that does not depend on changing the weather. The mind can come to that surface and see itself reflected without being torn by waves. Or think of a late porch after rain. The boards give a soft scent. The sky is clear and cool. A single lantern hangs untroubled. The world continues to move. The porch is a small island where the heart can rest. The island does not explain the storm. It simply provides a place to be still while the storm moves on. I read the verse again. Slower. Each word is a small hand. My voice moves like gentle tide. Breath accompanies the reading. The first inhale gathers whatever unsettles the mind. The longer exhale releases it, not by force, but by allowance. The rhythm matters more than the content. The rhythm becomes the point. There is a line about guarding hearts and minds. I take it as a picture of watchfulness that is calm rather than anxious. Guarding here does not mean armor hammered tight. It means a careful tending, like a gardener who watches the soil and waters with patience. The gardener does not shout at the weather. The gardener plants small, steady acts. The peace in the text watches over the quiet spaces of the soul with similar gentleness. Practice helps the presence arrive. I offer a small exercise for the bedside. Take a breath in. Name nothing aloud. Let thoughts come without wrestling them. As you breathe out, imagine setting the thought on the table beside the lamp. Do this not to punish the thought, but to give it a place. Repeat this motion a few times. The mind learns the shape of handing things over without insisting on the details. The action is simple. It is enough. I also speak of the body. The chest often tightens where the mind cannot solve a worry. Shoulders rise up around the ears. The jaw holds. The breath shortens. The peace that comes beyond understanding makes a tiny allowance for the body to unwind. Shoulders drop an inch. The jaw loosens. Fingers unclench. The simple physical easing teaches the heart that it can safely let go. The evening light takes on meaning in this context. It is not a demonstration. It is a teacher by example. Dim light asks the eyes to rest. The house slows down. Plates are tucked away. Everywhere the pace changes. The mind finds it easier to follow. The smallness of the room becomes a practice ground for peace. The less that is demanded of thought, the more space remains for gentleness. Sometimes the verse meets a night of thin patience. A worry will rise even after the exercise. The practice is not a one-time cure. It is a returning. I encourage a mild persistence. If an anxious thought returns, offer it a seat again. If nights are long, allow repetition to be a friend. One more breath. One more small placing of the worry on the table. The tender rhythm of return is how repair often works. I avoid turning this into a list of things to fix. The goal is not performance. It is repose. The presence I read about does not score the night. It simply keeps company. Imagine an old friend who sits without asking for details. The friend holds a cup of tea and waits with a steady gaze. That waiting is not empty. It is full of attention, without expectation. There is another picture that helps a narrow path through the woods. The path is lit by dappled sun. You walk slowly. The trees bend and let light fall in patterns. You need not know the entire route. The step you take now is enough. The scarce clarity of the moment is a kind of mercy. The peace that transcends understanding often meets the step just ahead. Not the whole journey all at once. I read passages about prayer and quiet trust. The words suggest turning thoughts into short, honest friends. A half-formed sentence offered in the dark can be enough. I do not press for eloquence. I simply invite truth, a whisper of need, a breath that names tiredness. The act of turning the heart toward the presence does not always change circumstances. It changes the carrier. The load shifts from clenched hands to open palms. Night is a good teacher of smallness. When the world is hushed and the house leans inward, there is space to notice small mercies. A warmed place in bed, a neighbor's quiet courtesy, a remembered kindness. These are not solutions to great questions. They are reminders that life contains simple, steady hope. The piece I read of collects those small pieces and folds them into a soft shape that can be carried to sleep. I also speak of limits with tenderness. There are things we cannot mend tonight. There are conversations that will wait for daylight. The peace that comes beyond understanding does not shame the limit. It respects it. It supplies a steady measure for the present. Knowing where to stop is itself a way of receiving mercy. It permits the mind to close like a window, not because it refuses to see, but because rest is necessary. Music can be an ally. A single low hum or a remembered hymn played quietly in the mind has a way of holding the chest steady. It does not argue with thought. It simply keeps a gentle time. The human voice, even without words, can remind the heart of a steady presence. The rhythm of song can become another kind of prayer, a companion for the breath. When fear feels particularly loud, a simple naming helps. Say the fear softly, and then follow with a small piece of trust. The trust need not be grand. It can be an observation that morning light has come before, that a hand reached out once, that a small kindness was given this week. The juxtaposition is not a solution. It is a steadying practice that softens the edge of worry. I keep the theology light. I do not argue the mechanics of how peace works. I only point to the fact that it arrives. It often comes when the heart is not demanding proof. It slips in while the mind is occupied with breath. The most faithful response is simple receiving hands open and still. The reading winds to a close with an image of harbor. The heart is like a small boat. The harbor is not a solution to every storm. It is a safe place to rest. The peace, the verse names, is the harbor that holds, without needing to explain the waves. That holding is sufficient for the night. Before I close the book, I offer one final practice. Rest the palms on the lap. Feel the weight of the hands. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out long. Imagine the breath moving through the chest like a soft tide. Each breath yields a little more room. After a few cycles, let the eyes fall heavy. Let the rhythm become a small lullaby. The Bible closes with a soft sound. My hand lingers on the cover a moment. The lamp dims another fraction. The house settles into its evening hush. The peace that surpasses understanding is not loud. It is quiet and faithful. It does not demand explanation. It offers rest. I stand slowly and lower the light. The path to the bedroom is calm. The night receives what has been given. For now, the heart rests in a small harbor. Sleep comes like a kind visitor. The evening ends on purpose. I settle the Bible on my lap and let the cover breathe. The lamp holds its small circle of light. The room leans into quiet. My voice comes slow and even. Tonight, I return to a line that asks us to be still. It is simple. It is an invitation. It does not bargain. It asks only that we stop for a moment and notice who is near. Being still is not the same as doing nothing. It is a practice of attention. It is putting down the list of outcomes for a while. It is listening with the body as much as with the mind. I describe it as the hand that rests on the table after work is done. The hand does not need to speak. It simply feels the grain beneath the fingers and knows it is enough. I speak of presence as quiet company. Presence is not a distant fact. It is close enough to be felt as warmth. Imagine a lantern carried through a dark path. The light does not fix the entire world. It makes the next step clear. That steady light is like the nearness that the words on the page promise. It asks nothing of proof. It only wants to be noticed. There is a comfort in being known. The thought does not erase worry. It does not promise the sudden removal of trouble. What it promises is steadiness in the room where trouble sits. Picture a small boat tied to a friendly pier. The waves come. The boat rocks. The rope does not make the water calm. It keeps the boat from drifting away. That tether is the image of presence that holds us through shifting nights. I read a short sentence again in my head. Slowly. Be still, and remember that you are not alone. The words sink as a stone into a quiet pool. Ripples spread, but the center remains undisturbed. In that undisturbed place, breath deepens. The chest loosens a little. The mind finds a quieter rhythm. To practice being still, I offer simple movements. Place a hand on the heart. Feel the steady beat beneath the palm. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out longer. On each out-breath, imagine setting a thought down beside the lamp. No judgment. No rush. The thought rests there for the night. Repetition makes the action familiar. Familiarity makes the heart less startled by worry. I also speak of listening. Close the eyes for a moment and attend to small sounds. A distant clock, the heater's soft click, a neighbor's low steps far away. These sounds remind us that life continues around the quiet. Presence is woven through those ordinary noises. It can be recognized in the smallest rhythms. There is a season for every kind of stillness. Sometimes stillness comes after a day of decisions. Sometimes it arrives when grief is heavy. The invitation to be still fits both. The posture is the same. Hands loosen. Shoulders lower. Chest softens. The presence does not demand performance. It welcomes what is offered. I tell of a gardener who sits at dusk and watches rows of plants breathe out after sun. The gardener does not fix each leaf. Instead, the work is gentle tending in the quiet hour. The gardener rests beside the beds. The watching itself is a kind of worship. Presence shows up the same way, by watching with patience, not by scolding. Fear often insists on telling every worst-case story out loud. Stillness makes space for a different voice. It allows a small, steady thought to speak. You are watched over. That thought need not shout. It breathes in a modest tone. The practice of returning to it calms the mind. It is like repeating a single chord again and again, until the room tunes to it. I avoid long arguments about reasons. I prefer the small proofs of care. A neighbor leaves a cup of warm tea on a doorstep. The kettle sings softly on a stove. A hand smooths a blanket at the foot of a bed. These are not sermons. They are simple actions that show someone is near. Presence often looks like everyday kindness, plain and repeatable. Sometimes the presence feels like a light at the back of the house. You cannot see the hand that holds it, but you feel its warmth. That warmth does not erase the cold of winded nights. It simply makes the room livable. To lie down in that warmth is to accept company for the dark hours. The book I read speaks often of shelter. Shelter is not merely a roof. It is the way a voice speaks your name without rebuke. It is the place where a small failure does not define the rest of the night. I invite the listener to imagine such a room. The walls are not perfect. Light leaks through in places. Still, the room holds well enough for sleep. Presence holds in both sorrow and joy. When tears come, presence is a steady hand nearby. When laughter spills quietly at the table, the same presence delights without envy. That constancy matters more than dramatic demonstrations. It is the long, patient tending that makes the nights easier to pass. I ask for a simple ritual. Sit for a breath. Notice the weight of the body. Name one small truth, out loud or in a whisper. I am not alone. The sentence does not need to be elegant. It is an anchor. Repeat it a few times. Let the phrase settle, like a soft stone in the chest. The body learns to trust the anchor by feeling how it holds. There is a tenderness in limits. Presence does not always change the weather. It gives rest inside the weather. The house on the hill will still face storms. The lamp will still flicker in wind. Stillness allows the heart to note the storm and to rest anyway. That paradox is a quiet mercy. Memory can feel heavy at night. Presence meets memory with a different posture. It does not force forgetting. It offers reordering. Place difficult memories on a shelf and set alongside them small lights of gratitude. The new lights do not erase the old. They make the shelf more inhabitable. Over time, the room of memory becomes more balanced and the night less sharp. I describe a seashore at dawn. The horizon holds a slow promise. The waves come and go. A steady lighthouse stands, even when the day is overcast. Its beam reaches out. That beam is like the presence I read of. It does not explain the distance it crosses. It only keeps shining. The simple task of shining is enough. I speak also of waking in the night. If the mind unravels, return gently to breath. Name 3 small things in the dark that are true. A pillow that cradles, a hand that rests, a lamp that stays dim. The naming reorients the mind from what could be to what is. It is a small course correction. The presence that watches responds to this quiet work by making the next breath a little steadier. There is no performance expected in this hush. Perfection is not the measure. The measure is presence. The presence that the psalm points to is like a faithful chair. It will hold you even when you come with mud on your shoes. It does not judge. It receives. To sit in that chair is to practice trust in small, bodily ways. Towards the end of the reading, I invite a short silence. No task, no question, just being. In that silence, the pulse moves with less haste. Breath lengthens. Thoughts slide like leaves on a slow river. The lamp breathes its soft light. The Bible rests easy on the knees. Before I close the cover, I give one last practice. Fold the hands lightly. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 1. Breathe out for 6. As the exhale stretches, Imagine a small light moving from the chest out to the room. Let the light touch the walls, the window, the quiet corners. It returns and rests back where it began. Repeat 3 times. The pattern trains the body to notice the steady presence that fills the space. When the book shuts, the sound is small and final. The hand rests on the cover a moment. The lamp dims another fraction. The house breathes in a soft, communal way. The presence I have named remains. It is not a loud answer. It is a steady company at the bedside. I stand and lower the light by the hairbreadth of 1 notch. The path to bed is gentle. The door is not locked against the world. It is simply closed enough for rest to begin tonight. Being still is the small offering we give. In that stillness, the presence meets us and keeps us. The evening ends with purpose. I place the Bible where it will be ready for another night. The room keeps its hush. Mercy and hope dwell in the steady light. Sleep comes, not because every problem is solved, but because a faithful presence holds the night. The breath slows. The chest softens. Rest arrives as a small and kind companion. The Bible rests on my lap. The lamp paints the room in a soft circle. The house breathes slow. My voice keeps low and steady. Tonight the words I choose hold a single theme: letting go. Learning to let go of the past. A tale of a family member sits beside that thought. The story is close. It is not grand. It feels like a small kitchen table at dawn. The person at the center is my older brother. He moves through life with careful steps. Wounds from long ago shape his walk. He carries a list of wrongs. Names and slights live there like old coins in a pocket. The pockets are heavy. The shoulders are tight. For years the house knows the shape of that weight. Family gatherings carry a quiet strain. A shared meal tastes a little guarded. Laughter arrives and leaves with careful timing. Nobody talks about the ledger. It does not vanish because no one speaks its name. The silence keeps it alive. One winter, the brother grows quiet in a different way. A cold settles more than the weather. His hands do less. Even the gardens go untended. It becomes clear that something must shift. The shift begins not with a sermon, nor with a dramatic scene. It starts with a small, practical thing. He takes an old journal from the attic. The cover is cracked. Pages are soft. The first entries are bright and eager. Later ones are tight and clipped. He reads slowly. He does not speak the words aloud. He simply looks at the handwriting. The chapters of hurt stare back like small footprints in the snow. The act of looking is the first soft untying. At night he comes to the table with an old photograph. It is faded. The face in the photo is younger than the memories that press around it. He lays the picture down slowly, like a knife placed on a plate. He does not seek to change the past by sweeping it away. He only moves it somewhere visible. Seeing the face softens some edges. It reminds him that the person in the past was human and small like anyone else. A passage from the Bible becomes a companion for him. I read it at his bedside sometimes. Its voice is gentle. It does not storm. It shows a way of living that loosens hands. The words do not ask to forget. They ask for a different posture toward memory, to hold what is true, and to release what festers. He begins with small chores. He fixes a fence that once separated 2 yards. The fence did not need to be torn down. It needed mending. Each nail driven is a tiny confession. Each plank straightened is a step toward trust. The work is honest. It is not performance. People notice the fence slowly. They do not make a show of appreciation. They nod over hedges. Those nods matter. They are small assurances that the world contains room to repair. Walking helps. He takes long walks by the river. The current shows him a pattern. Water does not stop fault from happening. It moves around the stones and eventually smooths them. Watching that steady flow reshapes the way he imagines time. What once felt permanent begins to loosen. The idea that a scar can be gentle takes shape. He also learns a new practice at night. Instead of rehearsing the old arguments, he writes a short note each evening. Not a long confession, not a plea. A single line about one small kindness he noticed that day. It might be that a neighbor refilled the bird feeder. It might be that a child waved on a bus. The habit is small. It trains the mind to see mercies more often than injuries. Community shows up in quiet ways. A cousin brings a jar of soup without remark. A neighbor picks up a package. A letter with a postcard of a small church window arrives and sits on the table. None of these acts demands an answer. They tell a different story than the ledger. They show that life keeps offering its gentle textures. Healing for him is uneven. Some mornings his chest feels lighter. Some afternoons, old anger returns with a familiar sharpness. The change is not linear. It is a route with gentle steps forward and the occasional slide back. That is the honest work of letting go. It is patient. It is persistent. It refuses quick triumphs for steady repair. One evening, he does something small that marks a turn. He takes an old list of grievances and reads the names aloud in the kitchen. Not as accusation, but as naming. The act of putting names into sound loosens them from the tightness that kept them raw. He does not demand forgiveness from those named. He only names the hurt and then sets the paper on the windowsill to be seen. The paper is not burned. It is simply there in the light. I read passages with him. We sit with the lamp between us. The voice moves slow. The lines about mercy and rest come like a hand onto a weary back. The Bible does not promise that pain will vanish. It promises that another presence walks with the one who chooses to step down from the ledge of resentment. The presence meets him in the small room where he sits and learns to drop his stones. At times he makes an awkward apology. Not a speech, not a theatrical confession. A quiet sentence placed in the hands of a sibling. The return is not always swift. Some doors open more readily than others. Some do not open at all. Where doors remain closed, he learns to honor that boundary. Letting go is not always about reconciliation with another. Sometimes it is about reconciling oneself to what cannot be changed. Alongside that, he begins to receive mercy toward himself. The old voice that kept asking for proof of worth grows quieter. He starts to mend simple things he once neglected. A patch on a sleeve becomes symbolic. He cleans a forgotten cupboard. He prunes a rosebush. These acts are not dramatic. They are gestures that teach the hands to be gentle again. Prayer at night. becomes less a list of demands and more a laying down. A short breath offered toward the lamp will do. A one-line confession whispered to the quiet is enough. He learns to trust small practices. The Bible reads of a presence that pays attention to the ordinary. This gentle telling reassures him that letting go is not a weakness. It is a slow courage. Spring comes. A neighbor passes by and remarks on the fence. They do not make a play of it. The remark is a small nod. The brother smiles in a way less forced than before. The chest does not unclench all at once. It loosens over months. The light in that room seems to hold him without pushing. That steadiness matters. It is mercy in habit. What he learns is practical. Letting go is an action repeated over time. It is a series of small choices. Each choice is humble. Each choice is ordinary. No fireworks. No dramatic conversions. Just daily acts that build a new pattern. Over time, that pattern shapes a life unclenched. The family notices, not because of a grand celebration, but because the table feels lighter. Conversations wander to small things again. Laughter returns with an easier cadence. At night, the brother keeps a Bible on the side table. It is not an ornament. It is a companion. The pages are creased where his thumb rests. The lamp throws a soft pool. The peace that arrives is quiet and earned in patient habits. I tell this story to remind us of one thing. The past does not have the last word tonight. The next small act can begin the untying. A neighbor's loaf. A mended fence. A step toward a window with a photograph set down in soft light. These are not magic. They are mercy in practice. If you carry a similar weight this evening, try a simple thing. Find a small object that connects to what you hold. An old photograph. A folded note. A worn scrap. Place it on a table where light from the lamp can reach it. Breathe in and name one small truth about the object. Breathe out and set a gentle boundary around it. Repeat this act for several nights. The repetition is not mechanical. It is a slow training of the hands and the heart. I read a short passage aloud as you do this. Its lines are soft. They do not accuse. They invite. They say that mercy is near and that our hands can learn to open. The words sink into the room like warm water. The lamp listens. When the Bible closes tonight, it is with a gentle motion. The cover rests on my knee. My hand lingers a moment. Outside, the house keeps its slow breath. Inside, the table where the photograph sits throws a small pool of light. A life is being reshaped by small acts. A brother learns to let go one evening at a time. We end with a quiet invitation. Choose one small thing to place in the light tonight. Let it be the first soft untying. You do not owe an immediate resolution. You owe a willingness to begin again. Mercy walks with that willingness. Hope takes gentle steps beside it. I stand and lower the lamp a fraction. The room leans into sleep. The Bible is easy to find in the morning. For now, rest is the work we accept. The night holds what we set down. The house breathes. The heart learns to loosen. The evening ends with purpose. I place the Bible open on my lap. The lamp makes a quiet pool of light. The room breathes in soft, even rhythms. Fingers rest on the page. The passage I return to tonight is a short promise about a love that does not loosen its grip. It fits the hour. It steadies the chest. I read slowly. The words do not rush. They say that nothing, no fear, no force, no length of night can wrench away the love that holds us. The sentence settles like a hand across the shoulders. It does not lecture. It reassures. A picture comes easily. A shepherd walks a field at dusk. The sky is wide and cool. Stars wake one by one. The shepherd knows the names of the sheep. Each one matters. One wanders into the brambles and is quiet for a time. The shepherd does not tally the trouble. The shepherd leaves the flock and moves into the brush. The search is patient. The finding is gentle. The lamb is lifted and carried home on broad shoulders as the evening wind moves steady and soft. That is the kind of love the passage points to. It does not measure worth by a list. It finds the lost one by name. It does not abandon when the way is rough. It does not keep a ledger of errors. It reaches. The reaching arrives like warmth against a cold cheek. I pause. Breath moves slow. The room listens. The simplest sentences help the mind fold into the idea. Nothing can separate us. No height that lifts a heart too far. No depth that swallows a thought too deep. No present trouble. No future fear. No force outside the house. No loneliness inside it. These images are not meant to argue. They are small anchors for anxiety. There is comfort in naming the kinds of things that scare the mind. The passage lists storms that worry often invent pain. Heartbreak, loss, power. When those names come, the voice I read with keeps calm. The words are steady, like a bridge beam. The bridge does not erase the river below. It simply makes the crossing safe. I describe it as a light placed on a hill. The light cannot stop the night from bending in. It simply burns steadily. Travelers can keep the path by that flame. It does not demand the travelers to be certain. It asks only that they keep moving, step by careful step, in the hush. A small practice can hold the idea close. Place a hand over the heart. Feel the small, steady beat beneath the palm. This is a gentle proof. The pulse keeps even when thoughts race. The pressing hand is a witness to life that goes on. Say nothing aloud if sound feels too large. Let the silence be the prayer. Let breath breathe the promise in a quiet rhythm. The shepherd image returns. Imagine small hooves in cold grass. Imagine a lamb shivering behind a bush. The shepherd parts the branches with a patient hand. The lift is not unkind. The lamb is surprised and still. The shoulders that bear it are strong and sure. The path home is not swift. It is careful. The lamp at the cottage door waits. This love that will not be separated from us is like that steady lift. It does not deny the brambles. It does not pretend the journey does not bruise the hands. It holds anyway. The holding creates a space where breath can come again. It creates a room where sleep might arrive after a long day. When I read the verse, I do not make it a test. The promise is not a measure against which to fail. It is an offering for the tired an offering for the frightened, an offering for the one who believes they have been too broken to be wanted. The language is soft. It says, I am held, even in the dark. There are nights when the mind conjures images of distance, a life that seems too far gone, a relationship that feels closed, a body that no longer moves as it once did. The promise I read does not deny the reality of these distances. Instead, it reframes them. Distance is not a wall. It is a field with a gate that opens. The shepherd knows the gate. The shepherd walks toward it. A guiet ritual helps. Take a breath in and imagine a rope looped gently around the waist. Imagine another hand steadying the other end of the rope. The rope is not a shock. It is a tether. With the tether there is less fear of drifting. The rhythm of walking with a known hand becomes a kind of prayer. The words also name a firmness that takes particular shape in the life around the table. People who have kept watch through hard seasons understand the tone. They offer simple kinds of presents. A pot of soup left near the door. A lantern hung on the porch. A letter tucked under a teacup. These are not loud declarations. They are the small ways love makes room for returning. Sometimes the thought of eternity looms large and unsettles the night. The promise in the passage holds blow by blow. The term used is not technical. It is plain and close. It says the keeping is not temporary. It is the sort of keeping that endures storms and seasons. It is a guard that stands through dark stretches of time. Knowing this steadies the shoulders. I speak gently about fear and about the human tendency to erect walls for safety. Walls sometimes help. They also isolate. The love described in the verse does not push through walls in a way that slams down privacy. It waits at the gate. It invites. The invitation is patient. It does not shout. It whispers. Come as you are. That whisper can be practiced. Place an object by the lamp, a small stone, a knot of ribbon, an old ticket stub. Let it be the thing carried to the lamp each night. Place the hand over it with the other hand on the heart. Breathe and imagine the shepherd lifting the stone gently, carrying it like a memory that needs not disappear, but can be held differently. The ritual trains the hands to receive the promise. I also speak of those who worry about justice. The passage does not try to settle difficult questions in a single line. It offers a larger frame. Love that refuses to be separated is not mean. It is not soft in the face of harm. It is patient in repair. The kind of keeping named here often looks like steady restoration over time. Not a sudden wipe of pain. There is a quiet courage in such patience. Small acts repeat. Week by week, a letter arrives. A day is shown up with care. A neighbor pulls a chair closer. Over months, trust learns to breathe again. The promise I read tonight sits like mortar between each small brick. It does not erase the cracks. It keeps the wall standing. My own hands have known nights when belief felt thin. A tired faith is real. The verse comforts not by demanding more faith than the chest holds, but by offering a steadfastness that carries through thin moments. The image is of hands that do not let go when the fingers slacken. The hands hold even when the grasp is weak. When sorrow presses, the book's promise acts like a cloak. The cloak does not heal immediately. It warms. It allows sleep. The body. Warmed. Kenlet ho. Breath slows. Tears come and finish. In the morning, tasks feel possible in a way they did not the night before. The claim that nothing can separate us becomes not merely a doctrine, but a practical comfort for the hours before sunrise. I lower my voice further. The lamp is a steady companion. The page in my lap is familiar and soft with use. The promise wraps like a shawl. It is not flashy. It is reliable. It meets midnight without drama. It knows the shape of small hands and of heavy ones alike. Before the Bible closes, I offer a short practice to carry into sleep. Rest the chin on the chest for a moment. Let the gaze drop inward. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold gently for 2. Breathe out for 6. On each exhale, imagine a rope slackening just enough to feel the steady hand that holds the other end. Repeat this rhythm until the mind quiets. When the book shuts, the sound is soft. My hand lingers a moment on the cover. Outside, the house exhales with slow, even breaths. The promise that nothing can separate us from this love remains a quiet lamp. It does not prove away the dark. It promises a presence in it. I stand and go to lower the light. The path to the bedroom is easy tonight. The house leans inward. The heart carries the small comfort of being held. Mercy rests like a hand on a back. Hope waits by the window with a gentle, patient watch. Tonight, the word is simple. No force can separate. No distance is final. A shepherd knows the names and goes after those that wander. The lamp stays. The hands hold. For now, that is enough. The night keeps its slow promise. Sleep comes. The evening ends on purpose. I open the Bible and let the cover fall softly across my knees. The lamp breathes a small, steady light. The room inhales and settles. Pages rest warm under my fingers. I do not rush. I read so that the words may find their way into the quiet. Tonight I follow a line that says, "Old words help us endure." The sentence is simple. It offers a reason for the pages we hold. Things written long ago teach patience. They give courage for small nights. They hold a hope that keeps its place when the rest of life moves fast. I read slowly. Each clause lands like a small stone on still water. In the pause after each line, the sound of the house becomes clearer. The fan whispers. The clock breathes soft. Those sounds make room for what the book offers. The voice listening is steady. The ear is willing. The stories in this book are not antique trophies. They are friends who have weathered storms. They speak of people who lived through hard things. They do not sugar the trials. They show how others found breath in the middle of struggle. That example matters in a quiet way. It tells us we are not the first to walk a dark road. I imagine an old path through a wood. The path is marked by footprints that repeat over time. Each footprint is not the same. Some are deep with sorrow. Some are light with laughter. The trail does not promise an easy passage. It promises company. That company steadies the step. The idea in the verse I read tonight is like that path. The past gives a trail to follow when the legs are tired. Reading these passages has a habit. I fold the corner of a page rather than make a mark. I let my thumb trace a margin note that someone else left years before. Ink in the margin is an echo. It reminds me that another person once paused here and found the same small comfort. Dos ecos become quiet chorus. They keep the hope alive in ordinary ways. There is a gentle lesson about endurance. Endurance is not a grand endurance sport. It is a series of small breaths. It is a steady folding of hands. It is the patience to turn another page when the previous one is heavy. The scriptures show ordinary people learning that slow endurance is itself a kind of bravery. The book does not demand dramatic feats. It celebrates the small act of staying. Encouragement comes in tiny ways. A sentence about kindness, a short proverb about patience, a short line about the steadiness of a faithful presence. These fragments act like lamps on a dark road. They are not bright enough to banish night. They are enough to show the next step. This is the hope spoken of in the verse, not a roaring promise, but a steady light. I speak softly now of how to make the words part of the evening. Choose a short passage. Read it twice. Let the words breathe into the chest between breaths. Do not try to solve everything. Let one phrase sink in. Repeat that phrase as an act of meditation. Let it be the pillow for a night. The practice trains the heart to carry a small truth into sleep. An image helps. Picture a small lantern on a windowsill. The lantern is not large enough to fill a room. It zips and steadies a strip of light on the sill. Night gathers outside the window. The light does not deny night's depth. It holds a space where you can read the next line. This is how scripture works in the dark hours. It makes a little room inside the larger night. Sometimes the hope comes as a reminder of constancy. A sentence about promises kept, repeated in different language, shows a pattern. The pattern is a rope you can hold. It does not pull you through with force. It steadies a step. Remembering these patterns is like tracing the grain of wood with a thumb. The motion is small and calming. The book also leans toward honesty. It does not pretend that suffering is a simple thing to pass. It shows tears and doubts. It gives space for hard feelings. That honesty is itself encouraging. To be told that sorrow lives in the same pages as hope is to know that hope is not naive. It sits with reality. It is shaped by it. I keep the voice low. Each phrase is a careful hand. The aim is to let the words shape a rhythm where breath can relax. Long nights sometimes fill the mind with many possible outcomes. The scriptures resist the rush. They invite a single, slow practice read. Breathe. Rest. The repetition of that practice over time becomes endurance. There is a soft ritual that helps the words settle. Close the eyes for a breath after a phrase you like. Let the sentence echo once in silence. Feel the breath move in the body as the phrase repeats inside. Keep the eyes closed for one more long exhale. This tiny ritual anchors the text in the body, not only in the mind. The body remembers the words better when their rhythm is felt in the chest. Hope in these pages often arrives as a steady thread. It weaves through different stories and images. The thread is not loud. It is patient. It connects small acts of mercy across time. When a night feels thin and fragile, follow that thread. Let it thread the moments of the day into a longer pattern. What was isolated becomes part of a longer story. A simple practice for the bedside is to place one index card near the lamp. Write a single line from the passage that brings a soft, warm feeling. Keep that card face up. When the mind stirs at night, lift the card. Read the line slowly once. Breathe with it. Then close the card and return to sleep. Over nights, the card becomes a familiar friend. Familiarity builds endurance in the soul. The scriptures also remind us that hope is communal. The passages were written into a world of kitchens and courtyards and lamps. They were meant to be shared. Reading them alone is quiet. Reading them with another is a different kind of steady. I often imagine the person who first set the ink to the page and the person who reads it now. That chain of readers forms a gentle crowd around the bedside. It is not a crowd of spectacle. It is a company that endures. When sorrow returns even after the words have been read, do not be harsh. The practice of endurance invites patience with oneself. Hope is not a requirement to feel better at once. It is a tether that steadies small actions. A small step today may be only to open the Bible and rest fingers on the margin for a minute. That minute matters. It is an act of choosing hope by presence rather than by triumph. I am careful not to preach. The voice is companionable, not commanding. The goal is to bring assurance without pressure. The book offers a quiet logic. The old words teach us to live slowly and to trust small forms of mercy. That trust does not erase difficulty. It makes room inside the difficulty for gentleness. Before I close the Bible, I let the last phrase sink slowly into the room. The lamp pools its light larger for a heartbeat. The house takes a breath. A small peace settles like evening dew. The pages feel smooth under the palm. A sense of continuity rests in the chest. The night seems a little less empty of meaning. There is one last practice I offer before the cover shuts. Place a hand lightly over the heart. Breathe in and think of one short phrase from the passage that gives warmth. Breathe out and whisper that phrase inwardly. Repeat this 3 times. Let each repetition be slower than the last. The practice is small and simple. It makes the hope written long ago a neighbor in the night. I close the Bible with a gentle motion. The sound is soft. My hand rests on the cover for a moment. The lamp dims slightly. The room leans into its hush. For tonight, the old words have done their work. They have given a little encouragement. They have offered a small, steady hope. I stand and lower the light one more gentle degree. The path to bed is quiet and easy. The book sits where it can be found in the morning. In the dark, the memory of a single phrase may return and hold the breath steady. That is enough for now. Sleep is invited. Hope arrives not as a demand, but as a companion. The night keeps watch. The evening ends with purpose. Hear the quiet story I bring tonight. I fold the words into a soft shape and lay them on the table between us. The lamp keeps a steady ring of light. The Bible rests open for a breath. I tell this tale because the scriptures often look like small lamps left at doorways. They show what the next step can be. I know a woman who lives on the edge of a town that feels older than the map. She keeps a small garden and an even smaller kitchen. Her days are ordinary. She wakes before dawn. She waters a few plants. She boils water for tea. Her hands know the work of careful living. Once, life narrows for her. A job is lost. A voice in the head lists reasons to worry. The nights grow long and restless. She counts bills and reasons and small losses until the chest grows tight. The world seems to close in like a door left ajar in wind. Her hope is threadbare. It is not dramatic. It does not burn with some sudden revelation. Instead, it sits like a single ember in a bed of ashes. Faint and warm, the ember could die easily. But it also could be coaxed back to light. A neighbor brings a jar of preserves one evening. No sermon, no long explanation. The jar sits on the step like a quiet offering. The neighbor leaves without knocking. The woman picks up the jar. Its weight is a small proof that someone noticed. The moment is small. The moment matters. She begins to read, not to prove anything, but because attention is a kind of receiving. A Bible sits on her counter. She opens it at random. A line about hope catches the eye. The phrase is short and plain. It feels like finding a warm towel in a cold house. She does not demand a tidy answer. She simply breathes with the sentence. Hope starts as little practices. She writes down one simple truth each night. Not a long confession. One small fact: a cat found its way to the porch. A neighbor smiled. The sun warmed the kettle. These facts are small stitches. Over weeks they become a seam. The seam holds. She also begins to do one practical thing for someone else each afternoon. A bowl of soup left at a door. A chair mended. A pair of shoes cleaned. These acts are not grand. They are steady. They pull the hands out of the habits that only circle worry. Giving, in modest measure, loosens the self-focused grip that fear tightens. A child in the neighborhood loses a toy. The woman searches with the child at dusk. The toy is found beside the hedge. The child's laugh is soft and real. In that laugh, something shifts. The woman notices that she can be needed without being perfect. The realization is small and honest. It is a turning. Scripture meets these small turns like water meeting a thirsty soil. The lines I read tonight are not clever arguments. They are low and patient counsel. They name mercy in everyday language. They hold the ordinary as sacred. The woman listens and lets the words coat the edges of her days. One morning she sees an old photograph tucked in a drawer. A face looks back young and slightly bruised by life. But still open. She holds the photo under the light and lets memory be what it already is fact. Memory keeps its shape. The photograph, placed in the kitchen window, softens the sharpness of regret. Light moves through it and scatters small, forgiving colors across the table. Over time, the ember grows, not into a bonfire, but into a clear, steady glow. The woman sleeps more deeply. Her hands unclench. The neighbor's small kindnesses. The practice of noting mercy. The act of helping another all become stitches in the same garment. The garment is not perfect. It does not make the world vanish. It makes the night easier to bear. A friend once told me to measure hope by the things that remain, not only by what returns. She suggested noting what continues to exist, when the day's noise falls away. A pigeon's soft coo outside the window, the texture of a wooden spoon in the palm, a small patch of sunlight on the floor in late afternoon. These are not spectacular. They are true. Hope renewed often waits in these ordinary things. It is not a dramatic conversion. It is the slow noticing of the steady material of life. The scriptures feed that noticing. They give phrases to hold like quiet tools. I read those phrases for their power to shape attention, not to start arguments. There is a moment in her story when someone we might call a stranger pays a small debt. Not as a grand gesture, just a note tucked under the kettle I remember when you helped my father. The note says thank you. The woman's chest loosens in a way she did not expect. The note does not erase hard days. It changes how she holds them. The ledger of worry does not vanish, but becomes an object at the table instead of a weight in the lap. Night practices help. Before sleep, she lays one hand flat in her lap and thinks of one small hope for tomorrow. A single line, may I notice, one mercy. She breathes and lets the line rest. The practice is simple. Repetition makes it sturdy. The next morning, her attention discovers small things more easily. The habit trains the eye to find light. At times, setbacks return. The work of renewing hope is not neat. Old worries reappear. That is to be expected. The woman learns tenderness toward herself. She stops demanding immediate proof that everything will be different. She allows that some nights will be harder than others. The Bible she reads does not flatten reality. It offers a companion through it. One passage she comes back to speaks of seeds that sleep beneath the soil. A farmer sows in faith, not in sight. The image helps her accept that not all repair is visible. Some growth takes place under the surface. The patience required is ordinary. It looks like watering a seed with a small watering can. Night after night, even when the ground looks unchanged. I tell this story now because I have seen it many times in many houses. Hope returns not with noise but with small, steady things. A neighbor's loaf, a brief note, a photograph in the window, the habit of naming one mercy each night, a routine of giving. Scripture often points to those modest acts as the way forward. If you would like to try a small practice tonight, take a stone or a small object from a pocket. Hold it in the palm. Think of one small hope you want to plant. Just one. Name it softly in your mind. Place the object on the windowsill or near the lamp. Each night for a little while. Return to it and add one small fact of mercy you noticed that day. Over time, the sill gathers a line of tiny witnesses. The collection is not proof. It is presence. I close the Bible and rest my hand on the cover. The sound is small. The room feels wider for a breath. Mercy stays near. Not as a doctrine, but as a practice. Hope is not a demand to be brave. It is a companion that learns the shape of your footsteps and walks with you. Slowly and patiently. I dim the lamp a little more. The house breathes in even strokes. If the mind grows busy, return to the stone in your palm. Breathe in, breathe out. Let the small image of the woman's kitchen tea boiling. A photograph in the window. A neighbor's note fill the chest with a soft, steady comfort. For now, Sleep is invited. Let the small practices you carry tonight, whatever they be, do their gentle work. The scriptures have been read to keep the hope lamps lit, not to startle. The light is low and kind. The path ahead is one careful step at a time. I place the Bible where it will be easy to find again. My hand lingers on the cover a moment. The lamp shifts down. The house leans into quiet. Hope sits like a small light on the sill. The evening ends with purpose. The Bible lies open on my lap. The lamp makes a quiet circle. The house breathes slow. I hold the book like a companion. My voice is low. The verse I carry tonight asks a single, simple thing. It invites the placing of worry somewhere safe. It asks that burdens be handed over, one by one, instead of hoarded in the chest. I do not speak in heavy theology. I read as a friend reads beside a bedside. The line I follow says, "In gentle words, put your anxieties down and let them be carried." The promise that follows is not a program. It is a kind hand. It says the weight need not be yours alone. There is a close friend I think of when these lines come. The story is not dramatic in its telling. It is the kind of life change that happens in the small ways no one sees at once. The friend is a quiet person by nature. Years ago, life tightens on them like winter. Loss arrives in several forms. A long illness touches the family. Work shifts and ends. Sleep becomes thin. Mornings start with a small, heavy list in the mind. At first they make plans for every worst case. They rehearse all outcomes until the night feels like a ledger. The body shows the cost. The shoulders hunch. The jaw holds. Worry becomes a repeating task. The house holds that task like an echo. One evening, a neighbor brings a warm bowl and leaves it without comment. It sits on the step and then on the table. The friend eats, then sits with the empty bowl and the lamp. And for a moment, the hands stop arranging fears into orders. The pause opens a space. In that space, something quiet suggests a different movement. Cast one worry down. Try handing one small piece to a presence that cares. They do not leap into faith like a shout. They practice small acts. Each night they choose one anxious thought and name it. Not to the world, not in a speech. They whisper the name into the dark or write it on a scrap of paper. The scrap is folded once, twice, and then placed beneath a small ceramic cup on the table. The act is small and visible. It is a way of saying, I will not carry this tonight. The change is bodily. The first week their shoulders drop an inch. The jaw unwinds a hair. A longer exhale follows a simple naming. The breath teaches the body a new pattern. Breath becomes the suturing of prayer to flesh. Inhaling gathers the worry with honesty. Exhaling lets it go as a practical motion. The rhythm feels ordinary and faithful. Over time, the practices grow. A bowl sits on the windowsill now. Each evening, a single scrap is placed beneath it. The bowl is not magic. It is a gentle marker of a habit. When a scrap stacks with others, the sight is calm. It is proof of a repeated kindness toward the self. Mon espace. The pile does not erase past hurts. It does something softer, It teaches a hand to open. Community holds a role. A friend checks in with a short note. A neighbor offers to water a plant for a weekend. Small tasks are shared. The friend learns to ask for help without feeling diminished. Help is not humiliation. It is a passing of weight from one pair of hands to another. Each small transfer loosens the fingers a little more. The faith that grows in these evenings is simple and practical. It is not a public theory. It looks like a hand placed on a wooden table. It sounds like one whispered sentence: you do not have to carry every worry tonight. The line of the scripture I read lands there. It becomes a permission more than a demand. The permission feels like mercy. There is a particular night I return to in memory. A storm runs heavy against the windows. News arrives that could pull the world taut again. The friend sits at the table with the lamp and the bowl, and a new worry. For a long while the hands tremble. Then they take a scrap. Write the name of that fear. Fold it and lay it down. The trembling continues for a time. It does not vanish at once, but the act creates room. The room makes it possible to sleep without being hollowed by the fear. Sleep, over weeks, begins to be less thin. The mind still wakes sometimes. Old anxieties stir. The new habit answers quietly. One scrap, one placement, one breath. The person does not become untroubled. They become steadier. Their days gain pauses in which mercy can enter. I speak of small rituals because they are appropriate for the night. I suggest a practice that has helped many. Take a small object, a pebble, a wooden bait, a scrap of cloth. Hold it for a breath. Name a worry you carry. Place the object down near the lamp. Each night do the same with one small fear. The object is not a symbol of denial. It is a tool of transfer. Or team. A line of objects forms. The line is a quiet record of what was handed over. Breath plays with these rituals like a partner. Breathe in and imagine the worry in the chest. Breathe out and imagine the worry sliding into the hand and away into the object. The act is not magical. It is corporeal. The body learns a posture of release. The mind learns that handing over is possible without losing agency. There is care in boundaries, too. Releasing anxiety does not mean a reckless trusting of every situation. It does not call for ignoring problem-solving. Practical tasks remain. Pay a bill. Call the doctor. Plan a budget. Releasing is not avoiding. It is not pretending a problem will resolve without attention. It is the choice to stop letting anxiety do the work of everything. It is the decision to let worry take its place as one thing among many, not the whole story. Nightly prayer becomes short and steady for my friend. Not long treatises, not grand vows. A breath, a name, a handing over. Sometimes a line from the book slips in. I read that phrase aloud to them now and then. The words are not an accusation of past failure. They are a steady invitation. They say, give this to the care that holds you. The friend finds that hope is often renewed in small returns. A neighbor's smile, a neighbor's bowl, a morning when the shoulders do not rise as high. These are not spectacular signs. They are the small proofs that the habit works. The heart, over time, shifts from a clenched fist to a softer hand. There are nights of setback. A letter arrives that frays the edges. An old loss reappears with sharpness. The practice does not promise immediate peace. It promises a place to lay the new pain without reawakening every old one. The habit of handing over teaches the hands what to do when the tide comes in again. I often sit with this friend and read the simple lines aloud. The voice is steady. The lamp is small. The act of reading is a practice of presence. Presence does not solve everything. It changes the way a person carries. It shows, in the flesh, that someone else will help hold the load. If you are carrying anxieties tonight, try a small step. Choose one thread of worry. Name it softly. Place an object down beside the lamp. Say one short phrase to yourself. Even if the phrase is only a breath, breathe out with the thought that this small thing is not yours alone to hold. Let your body feel the motion of release. I do not promise a bright fix. I promise that the motion of giving lightens the hands. Repetition trains the heart. The practice of casting anxieties onto a caring presence becomes a real bodily skill. It is not a single event. It is a way of living. Night by night, the Bible closes with a quiet sound. My hand rests on the cover. The lamp dims a hair. The house breathes with a slow, even rhythm. Hope sits, not as a demand for sudden courage, but as a companion who learns the steps along with you. Tonight, take one small fear and let it be the thing you place down. Let the motion be simple. Let the breath be long. The room will receive the offering. Mercy walks beside that action. The heart will find, slowly, that sleep can come with less of the weight. The evening ends with purpose. The lamp goes lower. The house settles. The hands learn to open. He cares deeply for each one of us, offering clarity and calm to replace our worry. Shasan, embracing nightfall with contentment. Psalm 4:8. As you lay your head to rest, remember that you are invited into a quiet that steadies the whole body. I set the Bible on my knee and let the lamp make its small circle. The page breathes as it opens. Tonight the thought that guides me is a simple promise. There is a safe place to lie down, and the mind can learn to trust it. I do not preach. I read as someone sits beside you with a warm cup, not to fix everything, but to make the next hour softer. The verse that stays with me tonight is like a hinge. It turns the day into a door and opens it into a room meant for sleep. The language is not technical. It is domestic. It says, you may lie down in peace. Let this be the posture you practice now. I slow my voice so that each sentence becomes an instrument to steady breath. Breathe in here with me. Hold for a moment. Breathe out long. Each exhale loosens the tightness right below the throat. Each inhale gives a gentle reminder that the body is still tended. The rhythm matters more than the meaning. The rhythm teaches the chest to be quiet. I invite a simple image. Picture a small house at dusk. The windows glow warmly. The shutters are latched. A cat curls on the hearth. Outside, trees lean without fuss. Inside, a single lamp stays lit until sleep arrives. The house does not proclaim its safety. It simply is. That unassuming steadiness becomes a kind of shelter for the mind. Contentment here is not a grand emotion. It is a small settling of shoulders. It is the decision to stop auditing the day's faults for a while. Put the ledger down. Let the hands be empty. In that emptiness, there is room to receive the quiet. That receiving is itself a kind of prayer. I describe a nightly habit that helps me settle into this contentment. Take a breath and place a palm over the place. The heartbeat sits. Let the hand feel the small, steady drum. Speak one short sentence inwardly for tonight. I will rest. The sentence need not be ornate. Its power is in the repetition. Repeat it slowly 3 times. Each repetition makes the chest softer. Another practice is small and tactile. Find a small object, a pebble, a coin, a bead. Hold it for a breath. Name one thing from the day that you will let go of for the night. It can be tiny. Fold that thought into the hand with the object. Lie down and place the object on the bedside table as a sign that you are allowing the day to rest. The act is not magic. It is training. Hands learn to open when regularly given such work to do. The psalm that guides this part often pictures a person lying down and sleeping because a guardian stays near. Think of someone on watch, not with rigid eyes, but with gentle attention. The presence is quiet, but reliable. It is not a distant force. It is close enough to hear the small sigh that leaves the chest in the dark. That closeness helps the mind let go of the compulsion to keep watch alone. I do not promise that worries vanish on command. Sometimes the mind protests. It lists what might happen next. It pulls old files and checks them one by one. When that happens, I invite the listener to a small rescue breathe and name 3 safe things that are true in the moment. A pillow that cradles, a lamp still burning, a steady breath. The list need not be large. The practice returns attention from what could be to what is. There is also a gentle moral here. Plain and quiet contentment grows out of gratitude, not as a duty, but as a habit. Each night, name one small thing you noticed that day. A neighbor who held the door, a kettle that sang, a patch of sunlight on the floor. Speak the thing softly, as if tucking it into bed beside you. These small notices stitch the day into a pattern that the heart can bear. Body work helps too. Soften the jaw. Let the tongue rest away from the teeth. Roll the shoulders back, and then let them drop. Bring attention to the feet. Wiggle the toes. Imagine the weight of the day seeping out through the soles, trickling like water down a drain. These tiny motions teach the nervous system that the night is a place for repair. I remind you also that contentment sometimes includes boundaries. It is wise to set aside certain thoughts for morning. Some problems need daytime light. Give yourself permission to set a time to return to them. Write a single note if that helps, 1 line of what needs attention. Written down so the mind does not have to hold it. Place the note where the morning will find it. Close the notebook. For tonight, the list rests. The presence I read about does not shame the difficulty of this work. It joins it. It walks beside the weak parts and does the heavy lifting sometimes. There is a tenderness in that idea. It means that you are allowed to be small. You are allowed to be imperfect. The invitation is to come to bed with hands unclenched, knowing the care that surrounds you is steady. I speak quietly about mercy now. Mercy is not a meter that measures how much you deserve. Rest. Mercy is the hand that smooths the blanket and tucks in the cold feet. It does not ask for justification. It only acts. Let that mercy be the last thought before sleep. Imagine it as a warm fabric draped lightly across the shoulders. It does not remove the night's learning. It simply makes the carrying bearable for now. For those who find sleep elusive, I offer a breathing count that often helps. Inhale for 4. Hold 1. Exhale for 6. Repeat this 4 times. With each cycle, imagine the exhale taking away a worry like a small leaf on a stream. Watch the leaves drift. They do not return for the moment. The stream goes on. The body follows the river's ease. I also suggest a short liturgy of trust. Not a long speech. A short line repeated until the eyes grow heavy. Speak softly. I will lie down and sleep. I trust the care that keeps its watch. The line is a hand on the bedside, familiar and calm. It is a phrase you can say again and again when the mind returns to its rehearsals. I do this work because the night asks for practices, not performances. Small, repeated actions create a habit of trust, or team. The hands learn to let go sooner. The breath lengthens. The chest becomes a quieter room. The lamp grows dimmer. The page in my lap rests a moment. I close with an image I return to often. Picture a child tucked in by someone who will not fail to come back. The child might toss in sleep. The caregiver waits. When the child settles, the caregiver breathes with ease too. That shared breathing is a kind of contentment that spreads from one chest to another. Now, the Bible closes with a soft motion. My hand lingers there for a small beat. I dim the lamp a degree and keep the room in its gentle hush. Place your palm once more over the heart. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out long. If a single sentence will come, let it be this tonight. I will lie down and sleep, for care holds me safe. I stand and lower the light another hair. The path to the bed is calm. The house leans into its silence. The Bible rests where it can be found in the morning. For now, the invitation is simple and sure. Embrace the night with contentment. Let mercy settle like a blanket. Trust that the watchful presence keeps steady. Sleep is invited. The evening ends on purpose. The Bible settles into my hands like a known companion. The lamp casts a smaller pool tonight. The room breathes with the same slow rhythm it has all week. A page opens where a short line waits. It is the one I come back to now. A gentle promise that names purpose plans meant for welfare and hope. I follow that thought tonight. The sentence from the book is not a map with every turn drawn. It is not a timetable to force the day. It is a simple assurance that someone who cares has a pattern in mind. Even when the next bend is dark, I do not try to explain the pattern. I only lay the words out like soft cloth and let them touch the hardened places. Trust in a plan feels odd when the present is loud. The mind lists possibilities and pulls each one into the light. To choose surrender is not to stop thinking. It is to change the posture of thought. It is the soft act of turning a hand from worrying at a knot to holding a warm mug. The hand still moves. The motion simply has a different shape. I describe a small image. Imagine a gardener tending a long row. The rows are not perfect. Some seeds do not take. Some shoots bend in surprising directions. The gardener watches the whole bed and knows where to water and where to let rest. The gardener has a plan, but the plan includes patience. There is room for seasons that look different than expected. That is the kind of plan the verse points to: careful, long, and kind. Surrender has a physical language. It is a softening of the jaw. It is letting the shoulders lower an inch. It is a decision to stop rehearsing every possibility before sleep. Those small movements make space. They teach the nervous system a different script. The body learns to trust with hands instead of insisting on explanations. A quiet practice helps. Take a single page from a small notebook. Write down one thing you fear about the days ahead. Not the whole list. One item. Fold the page twice and slide it into the Bible between two familiar pages. Not to make the book a filing cabinet, but to make a small, visible act of handing something over. Close the cover with care. Let the motion be the prayer. The action trains the fingers to give things away more often. The giving is neither dramatic nor magical. It is not a way to make consequences vanish. It is a change in posture. It says, this worry will not be the thing to hold my chest awake tonight. I place it somewhere. I know I can find it in daylight. And I allow rest to come for a while. When morning returns, the page is still there. The light on it looks different. The worry is not erased. It is received into a wider story. Trusting a plan often means believing the care extends to small things. The promise I read does not only speak of grand outcomes. It names simple welfare food, shelter, steady company, and those things are the scaffolding of hope. When small needs are tended, the heart finds it easier to wait. Hope is practical. It begins at the table. It grows by the bed. There is a balance here. Surrender is not the abandonment of all action. A captain who trusts the chart still trims the sails. Surrender is the difference between steering from fear and steering from calm. When fear drives, hands grip, and the work becomes frantic. When trust guides, hands act with steadiness. The difference shows in the length of a breath and the softness of rest. I invite another practical step. Before sleep, place a small object by the lamp, an old coin, a smooth pebble, a scrap of ribbon. Let it stand as a witness to the choice you make tonight. Take a breath and speak a short phrase. Inwardly, I will trust this plan for now. Fold the phrase into the chest with your next exhale. The ritual is not a test. It is a reminder that surrender is practiced like any other habit. Sometimes the plan looks less like a map and more like an artist's sketch. Lines are suggested, not ruled. The future has empty spaces to be filled. That looseness need not be a threat. It allows possibility to arrive. Hope in that kind of plan is quiet. It steps forward in small, visible ways, an unexpected kindness, a call that eases a worry, a morning that brings a new fact to the table. When disappointment arrives, it does not mean the plan has failed. Disappointment is part of seasons. The book I read tonight does not promise that troubles never come. It promises that trouble does not get the final say. That promise steadies the night. It lets the chest soften enough for sleep to begin. The presence who keeps the plan stays nearby in the small hours. I turn a page and pause. The margin shows where someone else once lingered. Their faint line is a quiet companion. Many hands have rested on these pages before mine. That chain of readers matters. It is proof that human hearts learn to trust slowly. Together, you are not asked to leap alone. You are invited into a long habit of handing things over and accepting care. There is a rhythm to practicing this trust. Make a short list in the morning of one thing to do and one thing to leave to care. Do the practical work you can. Fold the rest into the book at night. The loop between day and night creates a pocket of peace. Work happens, and rest follows. Neither cancels the other. Both belong. I know nights when uncertainty sounds loud. The mind offers many reasons to stay awake. In those moments, return to a small breath exercise. Breathe in for 3. Hold for 1. Breathe out for 5. With each exhale, imagine setting one worry beside the lamp. Do not force an answer. Let the worry sit there. The practice repeats the act of handing over. Each repetition loosens the grip a little more. Hope often shows itself in patience. Waiting is not idleness. It is a steady watch. A watch is less frantic when someone holds the other end of the rope. You can set down the rope and walk a few steps away, secure in the knowledge that the tether is steady. The psalm I read the other night spoke about lying down in peace because a guardian keeps watch. The promise of a plan that cares is a similar kind of guard. There are practical boundaries to preserve peace. If a worry calls for action, write the next step on a single card. Place it where daylight will find it. This separates the night's labor from the day's work. It is a kindness to the mind to limit the evening's to-do list. The card is not avoidance. It is scheduling. It trains the mind to trust the hours in their proper place. I also name mercy in this practice. Mercy toward the self for not solving everything at once. It is a small gentleness that allows a person to be human. Mistakes do not erase worth. A plan for welfare and hope assumes this tendency to err and still continues to care. Rest grows when the heart accepts this tender fact. The tiny, tactile acts matter. Smooth the blanket at your knees. Press the heel of the hand into the pillow for a long breath. Let the muscles around the eyes ease. These small physical gestures mirror the inner surrender. The body learns from the hands. When hands unclench, the mind follows. If fear insists, name it aloud in one short sentence. Then follow with one small trust, a line about the care promised. Not as proof, but as a companion. Repeat the pair slowly until the rhythm eases. The practice does not demand eloquence. It asks only for honesty and a willingness to let the worry rest somewhere else for the night. A gentle image holds me often, a potter at a wheel. Clay is not ruined by mistakes. The hand reshapes. The potter's plan guides, but allows for change as the form emerges. This is the kind of plan I read about. It has intention and patience. It permits repair. It values the shape as it grows, not only the finished product. I sit with that image now and let it warm the quiet. There is a comfort in being part of a plan that considers repair. It means that what is broken can be made whole, in some measure. It means that the good intended for us is not conditional on perfection. This is the tender center of the promise. As I prepare to close the book, I offer one last small ritual. Place a palm over the place. The heart rests. Breathe in slowly. As you breathe out, picture handing a single thing to the care that holds the plan. It could be worry, a decision, or a hope. Let the motion be plain and without drama. Close your eyes and feel the chest soften. Stay with that softness for 3 slow breaths. I close the Bible with hands that rest a moment longer. The cover makes a soft sound. The lamp lowers by a slight edge. The house inhales and settles. For now, let this be enough, a small act of trusting the plan. It is not a complete surrender to unknowns. It is a practiced handing over. It is stepping into the night with the hand relaxed. Stand slowly and dim the light. Leave the book where it will be easy to find in the morning. Walk to bed with the memory of the small act you made. Lay down and breathe. Trust does not have to shout. It can be the gentle hum in the chest that steadies the rest. Hope waits in the quiet. The evening ends on purpose. Shawu, a personal story of trust. The Bible rests on my lap. The lamp makes its small circle of light. The page breathes as it opens. Tonight, I share a personal story. It is quiet and plain. It is the story of learning to trust a plan that is larger than my own thinking. The journey begins in a season that felt ordinary at first. Work changed. A close friendship bent under strain. Nights grew long with questions that cycled like clock hands. The chest felt tight in ways I did not expect. The habit of planning became a way of trying to keep the world steady. That energy helped for a while. Then it tired. A passage I read one evening found its way into the marrow. The words were simple. They did not solve everything. They offered a posture. That posture was not sudden belief. It was patient trying. It looked like placing a small trust in the palm and not clenching so hard that the hand crumples. Trust begins with small acts. One night, a neighbor left a pot of soup at the door. No sermon. No long explanation. The pot was warm and plain. The act did not change the ledger of worries. It changed the chest a little. Holding the bowl quieted a racing mind for a few breaths. That small pause taught a lesson the mind would not have given help. Sometimes arrives without preconditions. There is a scene I return to often. A long walk beside a river while the light fades. The current carries leaves and small things. The motion is steady and indifferent to plans. Watching that flow teaches a likeness of trust. Things move, even when the hands are not on the wheel. The lesson is not fatalism. It is permission to let the current carry what cannot be rearranged by worry. Prayer, for me, stopped being a list. It became a practice of handing over one small thing at a time. Each night I choose a single worry and name it softly, not to command it away, but to make it tangible enough to be set down. The act of placing the thought beside the lamp creates a ritual. The ritual trains the body to release. Hands learn what letting go feels like. The Bible shows trust in images that are quiet and steady. A vine that receives care. A shepherd who knows each sheep. A promise that looks like soil and rain. Those pictures do not answer every question. They do offer a pattern. The pattern is simple. Someone watches the small things. That watching is not distant. It is close enough to hear the breath that comes through the window at night. Trust grows in the company of small people. Family and friends teach trust with their ordinary rhythms. A sibling who returns a call. A friend who keeps a promise to sit a while. These gestures do not fix every broken part. They build a habit of reliability. A life shaped by small returns becomes a life where trust can be practiced without theatrics. There were nights of stark doubt. The mind offered many reasons to resist trust. The past seemed like proof that plans could fail. In those nights, a gentle method helped. One sentence from the page became a cushion. Read, slowly. Breathe with it. Repeat it quietly until the body calms. The repetition does not coerce belief. It creates a place where belief can breathe. A careful habit became central. Each morning I write one small plan and one small surrender. The plan is practical. The surrender is a choice to let another thing be held by care. By evening, the habit is visible on paper. It feels less like abandoning responsibility and more like choosing an appropriate distribution of work. Some tasks belong to the hands. Some burdens belong to the larger care I read about. Trust sometimes arrives disguised as patience. A need that seemed urgent slows down. A relationship that once tensed loosens with repeated kindnesses. The change is not dramatic. It is a softer posture. Patience is the willingness to let repair take time. Repair often looks like the stacking of modest acts. Over months, those acts reshape the household of the heart. There is a tangible practice that has helped more than anything else. It is small and repeatable. Take a pebble or a small object in the hand. Name a worry with one short phrase. Place the object on the bedside table with the lamp. Repeat this nightly for a week. Each morning lift one object and notice the way the worry looks in daylight. The thing does not vanish. It becomes part of a shelf of things that were offered. The shelf is not a dismissal. It is a record of trust practiced in small, bodily ways. Confession became gentle in this season. It did not require a long speech. A single sentence of honesty read to the quiet gathered the strain. Laying that sentence into the open pages of the Bible, like a folded scrap, made the action visible. It was not show. It was a small rite that taught hands to open just a bit wider. Service returned trust to the body. The hands that once clenched now carried food, mended garments, trimmed hedges. Service does not always feel like receiving. In truth, it often becomes its own form of receiving. When giving is small and steady, it loosens the mind from the tyranny of fear. Helping another reshapes the inner ledger. Fear loses some of its authority when the body learns to build rather than only to guard. Boundaries found their place in the story too. Trust is not an invitation to reckless exposure. A wise restraint preserves the space where repair can occur. Boundaries read like rails for a path. They do not exclude mercy. They contain movement, so that fragile trust can grow without being trampled by old patterns. There were setbacks. Old wounds reopened on mornings that felt fragile. The habit of trust does not promise linear progress. It promises steady return. When a dark morning arrives, the same small rituals apply. A pebble placed, a short, honest breath, a neighbor's brief visit. The repetition matters. Each return to practice is not failure. It is the real apprenticeship of a life learning to trust. Hope softened into ordinary things. A lamp left burning when someone returns late. A note on a kettle that says someone remembers. A shared loaf at a door. These are not spectacles. They are the vocabulary of an everyday faith. The Bible's images often sound domestic for that reason. They meet real nights with real tables, not ideas that float far above the bed. A particular morning remains with me. A letter arrived that could have bent the chest into fear. The breath shortened. The hands wanted to move into frantic fixing instead of rising to the panic. A small practice held the moment. One line on paper named the first step. One pebble represented the worry. It sat for the night. By morning, the issue looked different. It still demanded attention, but the body was steadier. The next steps were manageable. The morning proved that trust does not erase difficulty. It makes movement more measured. Reading aloud became a companion in this work. The voice that reads the Bible at bedside does not argue with doubt. It sets a tone. Slow sentences. Pauses that are long enough for the body to listen. The hearing matters. Words that name care can be received in the chest when they are said without hurry. The pace is important. A hurried sentence seldom settles. Mercy shows up in tiny repairs. A neighbor mends a tear without fuss. An apology offered in a brief, honest phrase. A hand that steadies a shoulder in passing. These small acts teach the heart to expect gentle returns rather than sudden reversals. Trust grows where mercy becomes consistent, not conditional. Teaching the hands to open required repetitions that felt almost silly at first. Place one small thing on the table. Whisper a single, simple claim inwardly. I will try to trust tonight. That statement is not a triumph. It is a pact with the breath. Over time, the pact loosens the grip of fear. The body learns a different muscle. Faith's language remains plain in this story. It is not offered as an explanation for every hard thing. It is a way to live through them. The promise that guides me is not a schedule. It is a presence that watches small details and offers steady help. Trust is the practice of turning some things over and keeping hold of what can be done by the hands tonight. The evening closes with a small invitation. Choose one worry to hand over for the night. Take a pebble or a scrap of paper. Hold it gently. Speak no long words. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out and place the object on the bedside table. Let the hand rest on the cover of the Bible a moment. Feel how the shoulders fall. Just a fraction. If a dark thought returns, repeat the action. The habit will teach the body what the mind has resisted. I lay the Bible down on my lap. Fingers rest on the worn binding. The lamp dims a degree. The house breathes with the same slow rhythm it has all week. The story of trust is not finished. It continues in small repetitions and soft returns. For tonight, the hands are a little freer. The chest rests a little deeper. The lamp keeps its steady watch. I close the book softly. The cover comes down like a hand placed over a sleeping head. My fingers linger for heartbeat. The room holds its hush. Trust is not a shield from sorrow. It is a companion that walks beside sorrow and helps the feet find steady paths again. For now, that is enough. The night receives the small offering. Sleep comes when the hands are willing to open. The evening ends with purpose. The Bible rests on my lap. The lamp makes a soft pool of light. Night sits around the house like a blanket. My voice comes low and steady. Tonight I turn to one line that has a quiet power. It says, those who wait, those who trust, find a renewal of strength. The image it gives is simple and sure. Wings lifting upward. A rise that is neither hurried nor frantic. I let the phrase rest between us like a breath. Picture an eagle for a moment. Not the drama of a museum or a loud painting. A single bird on a high ledge. The wind comes up beneath it. It leans, and the air holds. Muscle meets breeze. A small, slow trust unfolds. The bird moves from rest into graceful motion. The lift is steady. The flight is not a strain. It is a return to what the bird was made to do. That is the kind of renewal the verse offers. It is not a sudden blast of force. It is a steady replenishing. Strength returns like a tide. It is gentle and reliable. It happens when waiting is not passive, but quiet and attentive. Waiting that trusts is an active rest. It lets help come, while hands are relaxed. I read the words very slowly. I do not hurry them. I place each syllable where breath can catch it. Between phrases I hold a little silence. The silence is part of the reading. In it, the meaning settles into the chest. Breathe in with me now. Breathe in and imagine the wings lifting. Feel the lift as a lightness across the shoulders. Hold the breath, just a moment. Breathe out and let a small weight fall from the hand. Repeat once more. The breath becomes a small rehearsal of rising. The text does not promise that everything changes by morning. It promises a form of renewal that prepares us. It readies us for the small blessings that will come when the day begins again. Strength restored like wings means the next day finds hands able to do what they must. It means patience for hard conversations. It means steadiness through small tasks. It means hope with a quiet confidence. I offer a short image to carry into sleep. Imagine the world at dawn. A thin light crosses rooftops. Small things appear in better relief. The cup on the counter, the neighbor's gate, the pattern on a tablecloth. When strength is renewed, the small things become manageable. You wake and find enough muscle for the ordinary mercies. This is the blessing. The verse suggests readiness for tomorrow's small gifts. Physical ease follows the image. Let the jaw soften. Let the shoulders drop an inch. Let the hands open loosely in the lap. The body responds when the mind practices release. The breath grows longer. The chest is less tight. In that slowing, the thought of renewal is more than an idea. It becomes a small felt thing. I invite a brief exercise of the imagination. Picture a moment from your day that felt heavy. Hold it a moment. not to fix it, but to notice how the chest responds. Now picture a pair of steady wings, gentle and broad, coming around that moment. The wings do not hide the thing. They make room. They lift a little of its weight. Breathe that image in and out a few times. Allow the inner muscles to mirror the soft lift. The promise of rising like eagles also carries a patience. Eagles do not force wind. They work with it. In the same way, renewals often come when we cooperate with what is present, the care we receive, the neighbor's simple help, the small rituals we keep. Strength rebounds not by sheer will, but by receiving what is offered. Practice receiving now. Let the thought of being gifted what you need sit quietly. I name Christ's mercy here in a simple way. The renewal we imagine is not only about human effort. A presence walks beside that lifting. It is a steady hand that cares. It meets the small longings of an ordinary night. The words point to a care that does not measure worth by performance. It offers help that arrives while hands are open. Now, I move gently to a prayer. I will keep this prayer short and tender. I will not speak loudly. I invite you to join me in silence or aloud. As it feels right, we will breathe and name a few soft things. The tone is quiet and sure. Join me. Place a hand over the place. The heart rests. Feel the small beat beneath the palm. Breathe slowly. Let the breath be the frame of the prayer. Thank you for this quiet hour. I say, thank you for the small mercies of the day, for the neighbor who noticed, for a warm cup, for the light that crossed the floor. These things are enough for tonight. I bring a single burden into the quiet now. I name it softly in my mind. I do not dress it in loud words. I hold it like a small stone and then set it down. We imagine taking that small stone and placing it into a gentle hand that does not tire. Let the breath move the worry into that hand. The body relaxes as the gift is set down. Renew my strength. I whisper in my heart. Let the lift come in the slow ways it chooses. Prepare the hands for tomorrow's simple work. Ready the feet for steady steps. Make the chest able to bear small joys and small trials with equal patience. Bring peace where there is stirring, and rest where there is unrest. Ease the shoulders of those who watch and wait tonight. Comfort those whose sleep will be thin. Place a calm that is not frantic but deep. Let mercy be small and practical, a neighbor's bowl, a friend's brief note, a hand to steady. These are the ways tenderness arrives in a night like this. I think of those who cannot sleep for other reasons. Whisper a soft presence over them. Let a peace that is quieter than explanations settle. Let strength return in ways that do not demand proof. In the morning, let them find one small help waiting a call. A message, a simple kindness. I hold close the ones whose hearts are heavy with grief or fear. Let the wings of care lift them enough to breathe. Let the renewal be enough to make the next day possible, not to erase sorrow, but to make space where sorrow can be carried without breaking the night. I name a hope now for our waking. May the coming day bring simple blessings. May hands find honest work. May conversation be gentle. May bread be on a table. May mercy find expression in small acts. Let the readiness born tonight be enough to greet tomorrow. I finish with a short invitation to silence. Sit with a few long breaths. Breathe in calm. Breathe out release. Feel the lift of the imagined wings once more. Let the image settle like a soft cloak. Now the lamp is lower. The page rests easy on my lap. My hand closes the book with care. For a moment I leave my hand there. The quiet lasts like a held note. The house breathes slow. Before I move to dim the light fully, I offer a single blessing. May your strength be renewed tonight. May you rise with steadier feet. May small mercies meet you at the door of morning. May the peace we have spoken hold you through the dark. Rest now. Sleep gently. The evening ends with purpose. I pause now in a silent moment of prayer, inviting peace to fill the space around us, soothing all restless thoughts. The room breathes with the same slow tempo it has kept all evening. My hand rests on the Bible. The pages are warm. The breath is steady. Before we close, a simple invitation s'étale. Take a small, careful minute to look back over the night we have shared, not to measure or correct, but to notice what line in the reading touched you, what image kept returning to the chest. Let that image rest there for a beat. I offer 3 very short questions to carry in the quiet. They are small and direct. What eased you tonight? What weight would you like to set down? If only for the night, who might be helped by a small act of tenderness tomorrow? Answer them in the silence. Or speak the answers softly to the lamp. Or press them into a page if that helps. The practice is simple. It helps the mind move from the noise of thinking to the gentleness of noticing. Reflection is not a chore. It is a soft folding of the day into a shape the heart can hold. There is no need for long sentences. A single line can be enough. A short note on a scrap of paper, a word written and tucked into a journal. These small acts train attention. They teach the hands how to finish a day with careful care. If a particular sorrow surfaces as you do this, do not try to fix it now. Meet it as you would meet a friend who has arrived late. Cold and tired, offer a small welcome. Put a hand to the place where it hurts and breathe with it. This is not avoidance. It is a gentle tending. The night is a time to receive healing, not to manufacture it. There is also a quiet way to share what you carry. It need not be public. It need not be eloquent. Choose one person you can trust. Send a short note tomorrow, 1 or 2 sentences that names a small need or a simple thanks. A message that says, I am thinking of you, or I remember you today, or even I need a listening ear tomorrow. Sharing is not for spectacle. It is a small transference of weight from a single chest to a pair of hands that might hold just a little while. If speaking seems too large, consider a small offering instead. Prepare a warm cup of tea for a neighbor. Leave a loaf of bread on a doorstep. Sweep the path outside someone's door. These gestures do not fix everything. They make a room for tenderness to grow. They teach the muscles of the heart to reach outward in ways that are quiet and repeatable. There is a practice I invite for the moments before sleep. Sit with the book on the knees. Place one hand over the chest and the other over the Bible. Breathe slowly. On the next exhale, Imagine the trouble of the day, loosening like a knot in a rope. Let it slide. Do this 3 times. The motion is small. The body understands the act of release better than the mind sometimes does. Repeat as needed. No drama. No demand for perfection. Just practice. If faith feels thin tonight, that is an honest place to bring to the quiet. Faith is not always a strong, bright thing. Sometimes it is a small ember. The reading has been the kindling for that ember. Sit with it. Do not force a blaze. Let the ember warm you in its own time. A single small prayer in the dark is enough. A word, a breath, a handing over. These humble gesturas matter. For those who carry long grief or persistent worry, consider one more small habit. Each evening, choose one practical thing to do for the next day. Make it modest and clear. Then write one thing you will entrust to care. The first is your work to do. The second is your permission to let another presence hold a part of the load. This separation of tasks helps the mind to rest. It keeps night for rest and day for work. Community matters in quiet ways. If a story in tonight's reading stirred something, share it with one person. Tell it simply, this line helped me. It made the room in my chest a bit wider. Sharing the soft things invites others to be tender in return. It does not require sermons or proofs. The exchange itself becomes a small refuge. I will read for you again another night. For now, let the practice be small and steady. Keep a little corner of the bedside for such acts. A notebook, a pen, a cup, a small object that reminds you to breathe. Over weeks, these quiet things form a habit of care. The habit tends the heart as surely as a neighbor's hand tends an injured bird. Habit becomes mercy, made visible. Now, a closing prayer. I keep it gentle and brief. There is no need for grand words. Speak it in the heart, or follow aloud if that comforts. A steady kindness. I breathe. A keeping that does not tire. For the tired, bring rest. For the worried, bring a small ease. For the lonely, send a gentle company. Let mercy find its way by small acts and soft words. Teach hands to open. Teach hearts to return. Let this presence be near enough to hear the quiet breath that leaves the room. Let hope be the small lamp that waits at the doorstep of morning. In this quiet, I place the night's fears and the day's fragile joys into hands that do not measure worth by performance. They are held. They are not discarded. They are cared for. I close the Bible with my fingers resting on the cover for a moment. The sound is soft. The hush that follows is deliberate. It is the space where the words settle and become part of the breathing. Do not hurry away from this stillness. Let it stretch a little longer before I dim the lamp. One last suggestion. Choose one thing, small and kind, to do tomorrow. Make it as modest as a folded note, or as practical as boiling an extra cup of tea for someone on the way. Intentionality is not grand. It is faithful. When repeated, small acts become the architecture of a life that rests better. I stand and lower the light. The path to the bed is gentle. The room is allowed to lean into the dark. Mercy remains. Hope remains. A neighborly presence keeps watch. The heart is given permission to sleep. Good night. Rest well. The evening ends with purpose. I open the cover one last time and let the pages breathe. The lamp settles into its familiar circle. Night leans in around the house like a soft shawl. My voice is low. I read to finish well. This is the close of a long, gentle hour stretched across many nights. The book has sat here with us like an old friend. Its paper has held prayers and small truths. Those truths are not loud. They are steady, the kind that fit into pockets and palms. I begin by naming the small practices we have kept. A single breath held and then released. A pebble placed on a sill. A short line chosen to repeat at dusk. These acts are not dramatic. They teach the body a new muscle. The muscle is simple. It learns to let go. Each night we learned one thing at a time. We did not demand sudden overhaul. We built habits by repetition. A neighbor's loaf was enough. A lamp left burning was enough. A note of thanks tucked into a kettle was enough. The sum of small mercies makes a safe room. The Bible rests on my lap like a companion. I do not read to lecture. I read to accompany. The pages point to mercy that is practical. They point to a hope that moves slowly and kindly. My reading is the slow placing of light on a table. It is meant to steady hands and quiet thoughts. If worry returns, practice the simple motion. Breathe in for a count that feels natural. Hold for a moment that does not strain. Breathe out longer than the breath in. Let a thought arrive and then place it beside the lamp. Use a pebble if that helps. Let the hands do the work of transferring weight. I ask you to remember the rhythm of small witness, the stones on the sill, the scraps beneath a bowl, the index card with a single plan. These tiny rituals are not superstition. They are practice. They train attention to notice mercy when it comes. They teach the heart to expect small kindnesses. Mercy often looks ordinary. It arrives in soup warmed on a stove. It comes as a neighbor who remembers your name. It is a hand that steadies at just the right moment. The scriptures celebrate these small textures. They do not demand grand miracles to make rest possible. I do not insist on answers. Many nights leave questions that will not be solved by dawn. The practice is gentleness, not certainty. We rest with questions held tenderly. We fold them into the margin and let sleep do its work. In the morning, the questions may look different. They rarely vanish all at once. Trust grows slowly. It grows by return visits to small truths. Tonight, as always, the promise I read points to a presence that is near. That presence watches the small motions of a life. It hears the hush of breath. It notices the clench of a jaw and the softening of a shoulder. The presence does not demand proof. It waits with steady attention. There is comfort in community, even when we are alone in bed. The book we read has been read by many hands before ours. Those margins carry faint echoes of other nights. The chain of readers is a kind of company. Know that others have sat beneath the same lamp and allowed the same slow work to begin. If you are holding heavy grief, I will not ask you to be quick. Grief is not a mistake. It is part of a life that remembers. Let the grief be seen. Place a hand over the place where it is felt. Breathe it once into the dark. Let the hand be a witness. Do this without shame. Mercy meets grief that is brought with honesty. For small fears that replay the evening, use the practice of naming one and handing it over. Write a single sentence if words help. Fold the paper and place it beneath an object you will see in the morning. The act does not erase the worry. It changes the posture toward it. That change lets rest begin. I keep the theology plain because the night asks for kindness, not debate. Speak of Christ as a gentle companion. Mention mercy as a daily habit. Let hope be a small light rather than a loud proclamation. These are not evasions. They are invitations to the heart to breathe again. There are habits I encourage for the coming mornings. Begin with one small thing done for another. A bowl of soup, a note left on a door, a chair pulled closer. These acts do not solve the day's large problems. They stitch life with a quiet thread. Over time, that thread becomes a garment that keeps the chest warm. If you rise in the night, do not strike your own hands for waking. Use the time to place attention on 3 small truths that are clearly present. A pillow that cradles, a lamp that still glows, a breath that is steady. These simple facts reorient the mind from what could be to what is. I also ask you to be gentle with your expectations. The work of reforming habits of worry takes evenings. Expect setbacks. Expect mornings that feel fragile. Each return to practice is not failure. It is apprenticeship. Keep coming back. Keep the rituals small and plain. The body trusts repetition more than rhetoric. A practice I have kept for myself is brief. Repeated prayer. I name one small hope and one small surrender. The hope might be a task that tomorrow needs doing. The surrender might be a worry that I will place down for the night. Both acts are humble and real. They occupy different parts of the hands. Tonight, I offer a short blessing to carry into sleep. Place a hand on the chest. Feel the rhythm beneath the palm. Close the eyes for a long, slow breath. Let the breath widen the heart, just enough to make room. Receive this as a quiet gift. You are held. Mercy is near. Hope is steady in small measure. If you can, choose one person to show tenderness to tomorrow. Do not wait for a great opportunity. Find a modest doorway, a cup left nearby, a loaf offered without announcement, a note of simple thanks. These small acts build the architecture of mercy in the daily work of living. I close the book with care now. The cover comes down like a hand laid gently over the heart. My fingers rest there a moment. The lamp remains in its pool, outside. The night keeps its slow, kind rhythm. Inside, the breath of the house moves in even time. Before I stand, I remind you of one final practice. Tonight, and for a little while after, place an object on your bedside that reminds you to breathe each time your hand finds it. Let it anchor a single slow breath. Make the breath a bridge between worry and rest. The transfer is simple. It is faithful. I dim the lamp by a small amount. The room grows a shade darker and deeper. The path to the bed looks softer. I place the Bible where it will be easy to find in the morning. My hand lingers on the cover for a moment longer. The pause is deliberate. The silence is not empty. It holds what we have shared. We have read and breathed together. We have practiced small acts of mercy. We have learned gentle ways to hand over weight. These are not instant cures. They are steady companions. Let them do their work in the hours ahead. Now the final motion is simple. Lay down. Turn the face toward the pillow. Breathe in for comfort. Breathe out for release. Let the small rituals of these nights keep a light kindled in the chest. May the scriptures, stories, and reflections nestle within you. May this peace carry into your dreams and into your world. If you know someone who needs a soft doorway tonight, remember to share this experience with them. Let mercy spread by small hands and small acts. I stand and lower the lamp once more. The house settles. The book rests ready. The night is entrusted. Rest receives you. Sleep comes as a kind visitor. The evening ends with purpose. Good night.